Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the MHA What If with another fanfiction. This is the first part of What If Deku Ran a Cafe While Being a Vigilante? All credits for this video go to their respective authors, so please support the real author. Check out the link in the description for more details. Please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. The classic sound of shutters lifting brought a smile to his face as he began unlocking the front door. Stepping inside, he hummed lightly at the state of the place. It wasn't much, just a small shop-like area. It had long since been left as the store chain had gone under and sold all their locations. It was how he managed to get the prime lot for such a bargain. With a sigh, he rolled up his sleeves and slung his bag off his shoulder, taking stock of his items. A single high-end corporate-style Wi-Fi router, one laptop, ready to do some web surfing, a Bluetooth speaker and his phone. The bottom of the bag was a mess of wires he dare not untangle just yet. Turning his phone on and checking the time first, he wiped the sleep out of his eyes. Sure, he was used to getting up at the crack of dawn, but that didn't mean he wasn't tired each time. Powering the speaker up to max volume and connecting his phone, he set about choosing the right playlist. Clicking his tongue as the music flared to life, he looked towards the shelves and other parts he'd have to dismantle before really getting to work. As he began, his thoughts drifted back through memories. He sat on the corner of his street, manning a small stand. It was only homemade lemonade and smoothies. Each plastic cup he sold for 5 yen. He wasn't that fussed about price as a boy, only about helping where he could. There was even a small radio so he could garner attention. The day went by like any summer's day. Other kids were playing around with their friends and/or parents. Oi Deku. Oh, hi Kaken. What are you doing? I'm selling lemonade and smoothies. Mom helped me make them. Would you like a cup? It's only 5 yen. What, why? The young blonde stood on the opposite side of the stall. Well, I can't give it away for free, Kaken. That'd be silly. Don't you want to play heroes? I can't be a hero, Kaken. I'm quirkless, so I won't be a pro hero. I'll be a guy that helps heroes. I'll own the place they go to for a break. Heroes don't need help. Everyone needs help, Kaken. Even All Might has a sidekick. Plus, they get hurt all the time, so someone's got to help them once the fight is over. My, you are clever for such a young lad. A third voice. Both boys looked over to see a tall man in a business suit smiling down at them. Who are you? Me? Oh, how rude. I'm Shigaraki. I've just been visiting some associates nearby when I saw the stand across the way. Now how much did you say it was, young man? Only 5 yen, sir. I'm not looking to make money, just make people smile. I'll take 2 then, please. I'm parched. Thank you, sir. So, what made you want to set up the stand? The man sipped at one cup, holding the second in his free hand. Well, I want to own a cafe someday, where everyone can feel safe and relax. Really? Somewhere everyone is welcome? Even villains? He paused before nodding. Really? Well, so long as people didn't do anything bad in the cafe, I wouldn't have a reason not to welcome them. Deku, you can't serve villains. That would make you a villain. What if he didn't know though, young man? What if he served a villain lemonade today without knowing? Kaken grumbled as he folded his arms. See? Would you willingly serve villains if you knew though, young sir? I don't know, Mr. Shigaraki. Maybe if they didn't do it for fun. Fun? Yeah, like some of the villains on TV, they only do bad things because it's fun. That's not right. But if they needed to or they were forced to, it's not their fault. You are a smart one, aren't you? How old are you, young man? I'm 8. My mama says I'm super smart for my age. That you are? I'm sorry, I didn't catch either of your names. I'm Midoriya Izuku, sir. And what are you going to call this cafe? Green tea coffee? An unorthodox name, but it's definitely unique. I wish you luck, Mr. Midoriya. Please, sir, I'm just Midoriya. Mr. Midoriya was my father. Shigaraki chuckled at that. All right, young Midoriya, I'll be keeping my eye out for your store. You might end up serving little old me again. I'll see you then, sir. Izuku grinned as he watched Shigaraki finish his second cup as he walked away, putting both cups in the bin. His eyes were shining with excitement, his first real customer. The doorbell chimed as he looked over. Christ Dikai, how can you ever hear anything? Katsuki Bakugo put his hands over his ears. Can you turn it down a bit? The blonde cried. Izuku just laughed and lowered the volume through his phone. You didn't even hesitate, did you? He currently sat taking apart a unit, surrounded by screws and parts he'd taken off already. Nope, he chuckled. Gotta get it done quick if I'm going to open on time. Katsuki just sighed. Alright, where do you need me to help? Oh, Kats, you don't have to help little old me. The greenette waved a hand. I'm sure you've studying to be doing. The entrance exam is only half written for you. So should you, business course is harder than they give it credit for. It's UA's course. It's going to be 7 circles of hell difficult. The explosive teen shrugged and picked up some tools to begin dismantling another shelving unit. Are you sure you still don't want to go for the hero course? No, Katsuki, I can't. Being a pro is dangerous. Too dangerous. A shake of his head. I'm going to be a hero in a different way. Once I pass the course at UA, I can officially open my cafe to heroes instead of just their civilian identities. Dude, we're 15, you're thinking about things when we're what, 22? Yeah, about there. Since I'll keep it open for a year before going to UA, if I can get a few staff in before I go, I can leave it open while I study. A rather loud groan over the music. Could you think like a regular teenager for like 5 minutes, please? Sure, porn, sex, tits, fuck, drugs. Stop. It's even worse, God, I take it back. Katsuki groaned as Izuku descended into a fit of laughter, kicking his legs out. You are something else, Dikairu, he cried as his friend just kept laughing. The lackeys heard a rumor today, had to tell me about it. Oh, yeah, some underground pro, been on the scene a few years already, rubberhead or some shit, Eraserhead, something like that, disables any transformation or emitter quirk for as long as he looks at you. A gentle silence. Figured you'd like another guy to analyze when you have some downtime next. Thanks, Cats. Tell Auntie I'll be home late for dinner tonight. I'm going to get as much done as I can tonight. Katsuki just sighed. It had been 2 years since Izuku had moved into the Bakugo household. 2 years since Inko Midoriya died. She wasn't a victim, or someone caught in a crossfire. No, she had a heart attack in her sleep and passed in the night. Doctors said it was due to her overworking herself and stress about her job. Masaru Bakugo sued her workplace on her behalf. Izuku had been awarded a hefty sum as compensation for losing his mother. Originally it had pissed him off that they'd just thrown cash at him instead of saying sorry, but after crying for a few days and grieving, he'd come to terms with what happened. His mother would never be replaced, not by anyone. But he knew better than to live life seeking retribution, seeking revenge. After a week of isolating himself, he'd walked out of his new bedroom determined to live for her, in her memory. To honor what she'd done for him, he'd live the best life he could and make something of himself that she could be proud of. Of course the Bakugos had been supportive and kind. Katsuki had never once steered away from his course of heroism, dragging Izuku along with him to the UA festivals so they could analyze together. They had an interesting dynamic, the duo, and it came from a day when they were just little kids playing in the forest. Katsuki had slipped off a log into a small stream and Izuku had called down from the edge to him, offering a plaster when the blonde scrambled back up. Ever since they'd been nearly inseparable, with the greenette reigning in his temper on more than one occasion. Aldera High, their school, had tried separating the dup on more than one occasion, claiming that the blonde didn't need a hopeless quirkless following him like a lost puppy. Another lawsuit and a news article later, the school had garnered the attention of Nizu himself, who despised seeing such a mockery of an educational institute. Cue a complete overhaul of the school and they boys found themselves in a much better environment. They still often wondered how they had failed to notice so many MLA sympathizers around them. Alright, but if you stay too late I'll be coming here to drag your ass back, be it by your hair or by your toes if I need to. Katsuki's aggressive supportfulness was a surefire way to get the message through. Yeah, be back by 8 latest, got it? He grunted as his friend got up to stretch. You better have, fucking nerd, the bell chimed as he opened the door. Says the straight-A student. Izuku shot back as the door closed. Nerd. His shout permeated the glass. Izuku sighed as he took apart the last few shelves. The music shifted to a more relaxed playlist as he set about organizing the stuff ready for disposal. It took little under 6 hours to take everything apart. Thanks to Katsuki's help, he could now spend an hour taking apart the empty freezer aisles, which he did. Settling into a RHM rather easily, he listened to the music waft around as the large appliances fell apart. After that, he set up the router and leant against a wall, cracking open his laptop. One window displayed his current account, which was a rather healthy-looking account considering he was only 15 and hadn't had a part-time job. His inheritance from mom had combined with the compensation and given him an amount he could have lived off of for several years. What did he do instead? He set about making his dream happen. It wasn't going to be incredible stuff to start. Maybe 3 machines, some tables and chairs, a few sofas scattered against the back wall, some booths down a side. He'd bought the entire building, so he could extend upwards if he wanted to. The apartment at the top would be his to live in once he left UA. Maybe even while he was in UA. Beat student accommodations anyhow. With his current savings, he could afford some decent kit and some regular stock. With a small grin, he added what he wanted to his cart and hit buy. "Look, Mom, I'm doing it," he whispered softly to no one in particular. Sighing as he cleaned up a teacup, he grinned to himself. It had been a busy day, but he'd managed again. Green Tea Coffee Shop was doing well for itself a year on from its grand opening. Thanks to the prime space, it was victim to high foot traffic and quickly garnered a nice crowd of regulars. "Oi, nerd," the door chimed again as he looked from his position behind the counter. "If it ain't my favorite customer," he smirked. "So, the regular? It's just an Americano, and yeah, for of M please, the grunts wanted to come see your shop." "Yo Midori!" A teen with wings raised a hand. "Some of the girls in class were comparing your shop from last year with Starbucks. Wanted to weigh in on it ourselves." "I'd hardly say it's that good, Tsubasa, but I'll take any good press." He turned his back to use the machines. "I mean, it's been doing quite well for a weekend-only joint. It's mainly tourists on Sundays though, always looking for places to have a quick lunch." "Hey, any profit is still profit." A boy with long fingers stuck up a thumb. "Too right, Kaneki." Izuku nodded as he turned around, setting 3 cups on the counter, leaving the 4th in front of him. 4 Americanos fresh out of the press. "Thank you," the 3 boys chorused before sipping their drinks. Katsuki grinned as he put his cup down. "Whoa, Midori!" Tsubasa nearly slammed his cup down. "This is great. Where'd you get these beans from?" "This must have cost a kidney." "They're just regular beans, same as the stuff you'd find in Costa or McDonald's. I've managed to get better machines since I opened though. I should have enough to start stocking a snack counter soon." "Don't you need a display for those?" Kaneki raised an eyebrow. "Well, yeah, but..." He turned around and pulled a small string. A shutter opened up, revealing a glass display case for different desserts. "I got this with the profits I made last month. I just need a down payment to prove my validity to the supplier, then I'll pay for monthly stock of fresh treats, biscuits, cakes, apple turnovers." Tsubasa leant forwards. "Yes, even those." Izuku chuckled. "I won't be ordering much since this place is only open after school and during the weekends." "Dude, you really know your stuff?" "I have to in order to get onto UA's business course." He shrugged. "I mean, if I can say to them that I'm already running my own cafe, it should be qualifications enough, right?" "Too right." Kaneki grinned widely. "I bet that once Bakugo gets on the Hero House, you'll have dozens of students doing their homework in the booths." "One can only dream." They shared a laugh before drinking in silence. After the boys were finished, he began cleaning and getting ready to close up shop. As he locked the safe and left his office, someone burst into the cafe and hid behind the counter. Cautiously he walked over to them. Their eyes were wide and clearly hyperventilating. "Are you all right?" They stared at him like a deer caught in headlights. He stood up as he heard more people come charging in. "Guys? Can I help you? Did someone just come in here?" Blonde hair in buns, so tall and... "I mean, I probably served someone like that earlier today, but I'm just closing up shop right now. No one's been in here for, good hour and a half?" He smiled as he lied through his teeth. "What do you need her for?" "Stole some money off me, I want it back." The leader growled. Izuku shrugged. "I mean, I can keep an eye out for you gentlemen if you want, but it'll be hard looking for someone so generic." "All right, thanks." They stalked out of the door and he counted to 10 before ducking below the counter and putting a hand over his new arrival's mouth. "You didn't steal any money, did you?" A shake of their head. They wanted you for something else, didn't they? A nod as I began tearing up. Gently he removed his hand. They followed me for a long time. When I sped up, so did they. Kept making comments about a good time. Thank you. She was clearly a teenage girl, about his age and scared for her life. I wasn't sure you'd protect me, since I'm And how is it? Young lady like you a villain? You're about the same age as me. My quirk, it works off blood. So does Vlad King's. I need to drink it though. And? I do bad things when I crave it. How often do you crave it? Every two weeks, she sniffed, but it's been getting stronger. I'm scared. Sighing gently, he took her hand. Come with me. Leading her to the stairs, they moved to the upper floor. Like he'd planned, the cafe had expanded upwards, the second floor being solely a seating area, several sofas and booths around the area, and the balcony used for outside seating. Fortunately, he hadn't begun offering table service just yet, so he could just man the counter while doing rounds every hour to clean up. All right, firstly, name? Himiko. Himiko Toga. They moved through the staff door into a back room. Nice to meet ya, Toga. Izuku Midoriya. Call me Midori if you want. Next, age? 16. Crossing the room, they went through another door and began walking up the stairs. Same age, just like I thought. Third. Are you currently in education? No. He opened the door to his apartment and turned on the light, not even pausing at her reply. I dropped out of high school. Perfect. You're hired as a full-time barista of green tea coffee. The door shut and locked behind them. You start tomorrow. Uniform is already in the storage room. Go back there before you go to bed tonight. Fourth question. Are you currently missing or wanted by the police? They arrived in his kitchen and he opened a cupboard. No, my folks kicked me out a few months ago. They don't like my quirk. Final question. Are you planning on doing anything illegal at any time soon? No. Good, you can take the guest room. But before we do any of that, turning to face her with a med kit in hand, he looked her in the eye. You're going to bite me. Come on, man, you gotta get me her number. Tsubasa leant over the counter desperately. She's so fucking gorgeous. She is also not deaf. Izuku would forever deny that Tsubasa screamed like a little girl. Himiko would do no such thing. And can hear you even over this noise. The blonde slid behind the counter, putting a tray down and cleaning up the cups she collected. As cute as you are, Tsubasa, you can find a girl way better than some high school dropout. Hey, you're doing the online courses. Don't sell yourself short, Himiko. Izuku shot over his shoulder as he worked the machines. It had been a few weeks since his first staff member joined and green tea coffee had yet to stop benefiting from it. Thanks to Himiko not being at school, she could work the counter most days until Izuku came in from school. Since there weren't any rushes during school and work hours, she never found herself overwhelmed. With the new leaf came a bunch of new experiences for her, such as cooking food herself, getting takeaways, late nights watching movies. Izuku was mortified when she admitted to not knowing what popcorn was. Something he wasn't able to help her with, though, was the guys trying to get her number. After her run-in, Izuku was the only guy she trusted, maybe Katsuki too, but his aggressive support was a tad intense for her right now. The offers for dates didn't much scare her, though, as the cafe was a safe zone for her. No one in the place would act like a creep. She would just kindly decline and give off a negative about herself, like the fact she was a biter, or that she never finished high school. A gentle put-down, but a put-down nonetheless, and more often than not they'd return back to the cafe, remaining polite and friendly. That was another first for Himiko. Friends. Izuku counted himself lucky that he'd had Bakugo since forever and Tsubasa and Kaneki from middle school. Both duos were friends from birth and had gravitated at lunches towards the other. Katsuki's way of showing his respect and care for them both was calling them lackeys and grunts. Everyone he didn't respect he called an extra, so to be called otherwise meant you had his favor. Even Himiko was called Fangs, stemming from her sharper canines. To others it wouldn't mean much, but to those that knew him, it meant he would fight tooth and nail for you. Himiko openly expressed how she didn't feel like part of the group, but they counted her in anyways, dragging her to the arcade on her days off and coming over to Izuku's through the street entrance for things like game nights and such. Even Masaru and Mitsuki had met her, and Izuku had to debate them off of adopting her, since it would probably get on the news again and nobody involved wanted that. You're just saying that, Midoriya? She pouted. Seriously though, Tsubasa, I'm grateful, honored even, but you can find someone better, much better. Okay, sorry Toga, I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. Don't worry about it, Tsubasa, I hope we can still be friends. Of course. It's always fun hanging out with you, Toga. He put down his empty cup. Right, I should get home now. Mom said we're going to visit Grandpa tomorrow and I need to be up early for the journey. Standing up, he waved as he walked to the door. Thanks for the drink. Both waved him away as they got back to work. Slowly the customers began leaving until they closed up. Alright Toga, you count up the till. I'm going to take stock and see what we need for this month's order. The shortbread has been selling well. Maybe see if you can get a few more of those. This time, she nodded, opening up the cash register. Izuku moved into the back room and took a list off the wall, counting all the brown boxes along the shelves. He was about to finish when there was a loud knocking at the front of the store. Darting towards the noise, he opened the door to meet an old man at the door. Excuse me, young man, is the owner of this establishment in? I'm the owner, can I help you? You are younger than I expected, that makes this a tad more difficult. What can I help you with? Do you have an office we can discuss this in? I'd rather we didn't have ears listening in. Pursing his lips, Izuku stepped aside. Come in. The man nodded and walked in as Izuku closed and locked the door. This way, he led the man towards the small room he called an office. Himiko, go upstairs please. Alright, but if he... I mean no harm or ill will. She nodded with narrowed eyes before leaving the room, closing the door behind her. Talk. You are Midoriya Izuku, correct? How do you know that? I knew your parents, Inko and Hisashi. What about them? They were good friends of mine. Well, until Hisashi jumped ship. Rat bastard fucked off when they found out I was quirkless. Mom worked several jobs to keep us afloat. I remember I offered to help more than once, but she said no repeatedly, didn't want to be in my debt. Had we not been friends, I would have said it was a wise choice. Who exactly are you? The boss of Shy Hisaki. Izuku froze. Are you trying to get protection money from? No, the complete opposite actually. I'm coming here for help. I didn't speak to Inko often after Hisashi fled, but every time I did, she spoke of Izuku and how much of a wonderful young man he was. I didn't realize how young she meant, but it is irrelevant at this time. I need your help, young Izuku. Tell me the problem and I'll see what I can do. It is my granddaughter. Her name is Eri. I believe she is in danger. His hand lifted. Izuku let him continue from one of my subordinates. He is useful but overestimates his place. I believe he is staging a coup in the near future, because he believes Eri is the key to the Yakuza revival. What's Eri's quirk? She can rewind organisms to previous states. She rewound her own father to the microbacterial stage. Her mother abandoned her to me shortly thereafter. I believe my subordinate wants to use her quirk to create a drug that can control the market on heroes versus villains. Something that can give and take quirks, right? Exactly. Boss nodded slowly. I fear for her safety in the compounds should the coup occur. You want me to take care of her? You must understand, I believed you would be much older than you are currently. From the way Inko spoke of you, I assumed you already an adult. To be fair, I didn't see her during her pregnancy, so I didn't know you were so young. The Midoriya family has been a great aid to my family in the past. Meaning? Did they tell you nothing? Your father, he was part of the Yakuza himself. Obviously he left shortly after meeting Inko, and since he was simply going to live quietly, they let him walk away. After swearing he would never go against them, Izuku found himself frozen in disbelief. Hisashi Midoriya, cowardly conman, part of the Yakuza? You're lying. Hisashi Midoriya was a fire quirk user, breathing powerful flames. He worked with the Yakuza on robbery missions, breaking open safes, collecting danger money. He was one of the highest-ranking members, which is why they let him walk away. Why I let him walk away. Had we known he was going to run when he did, we would have stepped in. The Yakuza are a clan with a sense of duty. To abandon your family is one of the highest insults in the clan, hence why Eri's mother was made to leave the clan. When she gave Eri to me, and you want me to take care of her? It is the only place I believe it would be safe for her. The rest of the Shy Hisaki are unaware of your existence. Simply because all record of Hisashi was destroyed when he left, I would have taken her to Inko herself, but… You heard of her passing? I attended the funeral, young man, he said roughly. You probably don't remember me because you were so angry and sad that day, but I was there. Who do you think aided the Bakugos with the cost? Are you? They do not owe the Yakuza or the Shy Hisaki. I paid from my own pocket, as I would have to Inko had she listened to me long enough. However, she did not, and now we find ourselves here. Why not take her to the Bakugos? I do not trust a Bakugo as much as I do a Midoriya. The Bakugos are civilian, you are legacy. Izuku closed his eyes and sighed through his nose. I'll do it, but on one condition. If Himiko recognized the four faces on the news a few days later, she never said anything. Izuku was busy going over the books as she watched the TV boss would be dropping off Eri as soon as she was packed for at least a few days' stay. Both knew she'd be staying much longer than that, but neither wanted to admit it. Izuku bit the inside of his cheek as he carried out some sums. The cafe would be fine. It still made profits. Himiko wasn't paid, nor did she pay rent. They'd agreed it was a useless loop of money going from him, to her, back to him. So she worked in exchange for living in his apartment. The moment she wanted to move out, she'd get paid accordingly. Izuku kept all the profits, and despite his living costs for food and utilities, he still had plenty to go to savings. Eri moving in changed that ever so slightly, but he wasn't going to mind. Honestly, he didn't want business with the Yakuza. So as soon as boss dropped her off, they'd work to change her identity for several days. Come to think of it, boss hadn't mentioned if she went to school or not. Izuku knew he sounded like a bastard for thinking like this, but it would be a major benefit if she didn't. He and Himiko could teach her basics and she could get into a semi-decent school when the time came. A sudden crash on the balcony and he stopped writing. Himiko looked over to him and he simply shook his head. Getting up from his seat and walking towards the door, he opened it suddenly and stepped out. A teen laid on the floor, face down. It was clear they'd just fallen from the rooftop and landed the worst way possible. Help, he groaned, lifting his head up. Izuku paled as he saw the serious burns charring the man's skin. Help me. Please. Without another word, Izuku hefted the man in and took him across the room, laying him on the sofa. Himiko, medicine cabinet, now, she nodded and dashed for it. Izuku darted into the bathroom and soaked a flannel in cold water, squeezing water out until it was just damp enough to be cold. Resting it on the man's forehead, he rolled up the sleeves to check for injuries. Aside from more concerning burns, there were a few bruises and scrapes, but nothing dangerous. Sir, hey, sir, can you tell me your name? Tadadu. What? Todoroki. Tadadu. Tuya Todoroki. Todoroki as in NG Todoroki? Number 2 pro hero. What the fuck was the son of the number 2 doing on his doorstep, burnt to fuck with injuries like he'd been in a brawl? I got the kit, and some water. Taking the glass from her, Izuku supported Todoroki's head enough to let him gently drink the water. Any idea? Tuya Todoroki, either his name or the name of the guy that did this to him. It's mainly some gnarly burns, but if we act quickly with the burn cream and get him hydrated, we can prevent the worst of it. He'll have blisters like nobody's business, but we should be able to prevent his skin from peeling away. Yeah, I'd rather not see that, thanks. Himiko shook her head slightly. Is he out of it? He's awake, just in bad shape, probably exhausted too, but he'll be wide awake in 3, 2. He counted down as he scooped the burn cream onto his fingertips and applied it to Todoroki's arm. No, I'm here, I'm okay, Mai. Todoroki, please calm down. My name is Midoriya Izuku. You just fell onto my balcony covered in some severe burns. What you're feeling is… You've had it before? Old man. Yukita said to these things. There was a pained smirk on his face. Ma normally applies it, not as much to you. Doesn't want BBA bastard to king. No, he spoke between grunts and coughs. Izuku frowned, pausing the application long enough to give Todoroki another drink. Well, I'm sorry to say, but you're going to be sleeping on the couch from now on, buddy. No way I can let you back there after that. Sounds like he's abusing you. Did he'll say I'm dead soon. A C caused the training room to collapse, bastard left me. To die. And you were on the rooftops because? I wouldn't get killed in my my sleep on the. It's alright, Todoroki, just rest for now. I'm going to keep applying the cream. Forgive me, but I'll have to remove some of your clothes to make sure you aren't in danger of skin peeling away and getting infected. SFI. Todoroki smiled as he closed his eyes. Ank, you. Izuku grunted as he kept rubbing the cream on in rather generous amounts. Todoroki would shine like a Christmas light and slip around like an ice cube on an ice rink, but at least he'd keep his skin and thusly not get infected. The greenette just frowned to himself for another moment before shaking his head. For mouths? Yeah, he could feed them, he'd have to dip into his savings for the start of it. Todoroki agreed to work downstairs. He could keep the shop open all day, every day. Weekends they could offer table service and get more in, plus he did get the order of takeaway paper cups. Plus, with 3 staff members, they could even begin a schedule and he could start advertising jobs. Katsuki was groaning about needing a part-time job this year, meaning there'd be more time to help Eri learn. If he could make this work, he would. I didn't want to have to do this so soon, but he currently sat before 2 of his 3 flatmates. I have little alternative. From his pockets, 2 keys were produced. Wait, what? The teen with black hair stared in shock. Izuku? Tuya, you didn't think this 2-bedroom studio apartment was the only one up here, right? The greenette chuckled. Look, you're next door. Himiko is the one after that. So I get the smallest bedroom? You got here last. He shrugged. Tuya just stared in shock. Ever since he'd crashed onto the balcony a few days ago, he'd gone through a metamorphosis. His snow-white hair had been dyed a void black, eyes had been changed to a chocolate brown with some contacts. He still had scars from the burning, but they were fading already. I pay the utilities bills and you don't pay rent, because you work downstairs. There's going to be a monthly shop for all 3 apartments. Have a list ready because we're going to have a rota every trip. Got it? Understood. Forwardslash got it. Mr. Midoriya? The 3 turned to look over at their newest roommate. Eri stood, barely 5 years old, and staring at them all. Are they going away? No, Eri, no, they're just. We're too big, Tyke. Tuya smiled warmly. If we stay here, we'll just eat everything in the fridge. Oh, okay. We'll only be next door, though, so if you need us, bang on the wall. An eyebrow was raised as he faced Izuku, right? Yeah, her bedroom borders your place, but you'll need to knock on Himiko's door. Tuya nodded. All right, that being said, let's open up shop. Eri waddled after them and Himiko tooted before picking the girl up and supporting her on her hip. Let's get you on a private table and learning, she mused. Yeah, wanna be smart like Mr. Midoriya? Eri nodded with a mile-wide grin. They marched out of his apartment and scaled the stairs, moving through the back of the cafe and arriving in the storefront. Grinning to himself, he led Himiko to a small table in a corner, setting up a laptop and some books. They weren't complex books, only some picture books and basic maths for her. Once she was happy, they began turning everything on and taking chairs off tables. Tia, care to do the honors? A large grin. With pleasure, the shutters were lifted as he unlocked the front door, pulling it open to flip over the sign. The 3 simply began to fill time until customers began trickling in. And who is this little bean? A voice spoke from behind Izuku as he continued making drinks. Oh, Miss Yaoyorozu, I wasn't aware today was a shopping day for you. The usual? If you please, Mr. Midoriya. It's just Izuku, ma'am. Mr. Midoriya is much too formal for a place like this. Ah, all right, then please, it's Yamamo, a nickname those I am comfortable with call me. All right then, Miss Yamamo, but to answer your question, that's the daughter of a family friend. He's in a spot of bother at the moment, so the green tea coffee staff have taken her in for the time being. He sighed. Due to circumstances less than ideal, she hasn't been able to start school, so for now she's being home, or rather, shop-schooled. Would like me to help? I could never. He turned around, sliding a china cup in front of her. 1 butter coffee, fresh and steaming. Yamamo gave him a wry grin. Thank you. Honestly, it'd be no bother to come over after school every day. My parents know I enjoy coming here. If they were to learn I was aiding such an adorable young lady, they'd let me stay here. As wonderful as that sounds, Miss Yamamo, I'm afraid that I only have 1 guest room and she's currently using it. There would be apartments upstairs I could use? I supposed you could bunk with Himiko. There's enough bedroom space. I'd obviously earn my keep if you were to let me. Miss Yamamoto, how about you try tutoring little Eri first, then we can see about getting Himiko to accept a flatmate? Sup nerd? They heard a friendly growl as Izuku pulled out another cup. The regular please. You got it cats? Extra. He greeted Yamamoto. My name is. I heard, I don't care. He nodded as the drink was slid in front of him. Thanks Deku. No worries, I know you're good for it after all. Izuku shook his head. Miss Yamamoto, Katsuki has this system wherein a name from him is earned, rather than given. He respects the workers here, so they get a nickname. For example, I've been Dikairu for as long as I can remember. Katz uses it as a form of encouragement. A you can do it nickname. Blondie over there is Fangs, sharp teeth, Burns. I think I'll call him Quispy. Izuku snorted. Quispy? Oh, that's perfect. Better than KFC face. Even Yamamoto giggled lightly. You are quite abrasive, aren't you? It's his way of showing affection, Izuku substituted. Honestly, I blame his mother. Woman shouts twice as much as he does. Poor Uncle Masaru somehow hasn't gone deaf just yet. Oh, are you cousins? May as well be brothers. Our folks were friends when we were younger. My father abandoned us when I was younger. Mom died of a heart attack when we were 13? Yeah, 3 years ago now. You are only 16? I had assumed that I was 20-something? She nodded rather embarrassed. I get that a lot. It's always been my dream to run a successful cafe for heroes and civilians, a place for both to feel safe and where ex-villains can come and be free of judgment. Ex-villains? Those whose circumstances forced their hand or left them no alternative, people who had to do something desperate and were punished for it, they too will be safe in green tea coffee. He nodded, cleaning out some more cups. Yamamoto nodded. When Mom died, Kat's parents sued the company on my behalf. Because her heart attack was from being overworked, we won and I got a rather large payout. When combined with the inheritance fund, I could afford some decent starting kit to get this place up and running. Over time it's become a hotspot for students and tourists, mainly tourists during the days though. Yo Midori! Tsubasa sat the opposite side of Katsuki. Can I get a latte? Medium please. Izuku nodded and turned to use the machine. Hey, have you guys heard? Heard what? Endeavor's kid died, like a couple days ago. Izuku's eyes widened. Yeah, I saw that on the news. He nodded, not turning around just yet. He was using his quirk when he went overboard and burned a room down on top of himself. Shame, Katsuki grumbled. He must have been a strong kid to do something like that. Wonder if they'll ever share his name. Tuya? Izuku truly froze at that. His name was Tuya, Yamamoto stated, almost with finality. Shoto Todoroki is in my class. He spoke of his older brother when we could get him to talk to us. He remains quite the shut-off person. Maybe bring him round here at some point? Izuku was a businessman. He knew how to say two things at once. Nearby Tuya was walking over with some cups to clean. After all, this place has quite the social atmosphere. It may encourage him to open up slightly. I don't think Shoto's a coffee person. You never know. Besides, we do serve more than just coffee here, Miss Yamamoto. Tuya remained unreactive as they spoke, tapping Izuku's ankle. It may just be he is grieving at the moment. Having someone there is the best thing for him, I guarantee it. Putting on a sad smile, he watched Yamamoto mentally react before nodding very lightly. I shall bring him tomorrow. For now I have a little bean to introduce myself to. She turned and hopped off the stool, wandering over to Eri's table. The two engaged in a quiet conversation before Eri was vibrating with joy and Yamamoto sat down opposite her. Say, Dikairu, did you ever actually look into that eraser guy? Not much, I'm afraid. I know his name's Eraserhead. Quirk is like you said, when he stares at you, he can prevent your quirk from activating. You know what that means, right? Izuku shook his head. You could be a hero. Except even Eraserhead levels the playing field. He's not bulletproof though, or able to lift cars with one arm. You could easily be an underground hero. Katsuki, I appreciate the support. Honestly, I really and truly do, but, well, it's not for me, not anymore. It's a shame too. Tsubasa shook his head. You'd be an awesome hero, dude. What we talking about? Kaneki fell into the seat on Tsubasa's other side. Midori being a hero? You kidding? He's already a hero. Cappuccino please man. They debated while he made the drink. He's saved our asses with studying several times over, not to mention the life elixir he brews in this place. The boy lifted the cup to his lips and downed the contents in a mouthful. Another please. Should I add it to your tab or can you? A large wad of bills was placed on the counter. Wow. That should cover the tab. Won it last night playing card with Dad and his friends, who knew poker was so easy to bluff through. Izuku quickly counted the cash and extra said a small amount. There's more in here than you realize, Kaneki. The majority of the money was handed back. This should cover your tab and the cappuccinos for today. You'll be going through 5 as usual? Yeah, another late night tonight. Quadratics is so hard. Once you get the gist, you'll have it down pat, Kaneki. Cats could always give you a few pointers. The blonde's eye narrowed. After all, he wouldn't want a lacking lackey, would he? Curse you and your ability to appeal to my good nature. Come on, Grinch, I'm dragging you through those equations before you leave today. Tsubasa nearly sighed when you 2 wings. Midori, help me. Tsubasa wailed before climbing from his stool and following the blonde to a booth. Izuku just chuckled as they walked away, cleaning up the cups. He'd be lying if he said Katsuki didn't have a point. Eraserhead fought quirkless. It was worth a shot, right? Eri was asleep. He'd locked up shop and everything was quiet. He'd taken his break and bought a cheap Halloween mask earlier in the day. A plastic All Might, with only holes for his eyes. Grinning as he let himself out onto the balcony, he nearly jumped when he heard. And where are you going this fine evening? Christ, Himiko, you nearly gave me a heart attack. She was currently standing on his balcony, grinning widely. Doesn't answer the question, are you going out to be a vigilante? Oh, you are, aren't you? I'm coming too. She put a hand into her pocket. Alright, let's. Rugrats, they looked over to the next balcony. Tuya was already climbing over. Do you really think I'd let you 2 wander off without me there to save your asses before you got yourselves killed? He revealed his own best jeanist plastic mask. Let's get to work. Yeah. Himiko cheered quietly, putting her own plastic Endeavor mask on. Tuya's sweat dropped. What? This way they'll pause just long enough for us to run. The 3 scaled the building to the rooftop and began jogging quietly. We need some gear if we're going to do this properly. That can come later. Right now we just need code names. Already picked mine. Dobby, you too? Ooh, vampire. Himiko hopped as she ran. What about you, Aizu? I was thinking Jade. Nice. I'll find us a broker at some point to get gear. Nothing much, just stuff to help with parkour. Himiko and Izuku nodded to him as they leapt across an alley. Any idea how we're going to cross streets? Izuku just grinned behind his mask. Jade? Just one. He leapt off the edge as Himiko and Tuya came to a stop. Reaching out with a gloved hand, he grabbed a telephone wire. It sagged under his weight, but remained tight enough to swing him back up. Letting go, he reached for the rooftop. As his fingers latched onto the ledge, he kicked off the wall and flipped over it. Standing up, he looked over to Himiko and Tuya, who just stood there, masks hiding their emotions. Himiko was next, retreating back to throw herself off the roof, landing in the wires and using it like a trampoline to spring up to him. Tuya just shook his head before taking a few paces backwards. Izuku and Himiko watched as he broke into a dead sprint and jumped, pushing off with all of his strength. His other foot landed on the top of the telephone pole and he crouched low before rocketing off again. Rolling as he landed, the older teen stood up and lifted his hands in victory. All 3 cheered as they began running again. Jade, they called as he dropped down an alley. Landing on a thug's shoulders, he knocked the man down and rolled along the floor. Himiko giggled while Tuya sighed. Cowabunga it is. Himiko began climbing her way down the fire escape as Tuya landed in a dustbin, using the trash as a springboard to attack the second thug. As the brawl broke out, Izuku ducked away next to the man's side. He laid against the wall, beat up but alive and conscious. Sir, are you all right? I'm fine, he groaned. Who are you kids? Couple of any Erdowells trying to do good is all, sir. Can you get up? Course, these punks don't know the first thing about fighting. Now I got some backup, we can take 'em out easy. Sensei, what are you? Izuku looked over to see 2 figures approaching. Who are these guys? A man in an All Might hoodie was sliding over on all 4s while a woman in a very revealing outfit floated down next to him. Endeavor Mask and Best Jeanist Mask are friendlies, the others were trying to 1 versus 7 your friend here. Izuku pulled the older man to his feet. Any reason why? Punks don't much like me, the man grunted. Knuckle Duster, runt is Crawler, this here's Pop Step. Jade, Vampire, Dabi. Izuku introduced himself and the others. Now can we aid my friends or not? The 4 jumped into the fight, it was now 1-on-1. Izuku had trained enough with Katsuki to know his way round a fight. Moving around a fist, he delivered a gut punch followed by a rising knee to the face. The thug stumbled backwards and he followed it up with another strike to the face. My friend's faster than you, he grunted, blocking a haymaker and returning with his own. Katsuki was fast, his explosions could propel him at incredible speeds. Izuku had to keep up with him, so he had some fast reaction times. Blocking a jab with his forearms, he kicked out the thug's knee and socked him around the face. The thug fell soundlessly to the floor. Izuku changed targets and charged at the guy fighting Tuya. Dabi, go high. Sharing a nod, the older teen charged forwards and threw out his arm. Izuku hit the floor and slid, kicking the man's ankles out from under him at the same time. Tuya capitalized on the airborne man by quickly punching him headfirst into the floor. Together they moved onto the third, fighting Himiko. Tuya put his arms out. Up. He called over his shoulder. Izuku understood immediately, jumping onto a trash can and bouncing off his shoulders. Himiko punched one side of his head while Tuya struck the other side. I'm here too. Izuku yelled, punching the man's head down as he was caught between the 2 other fists. Flipping to land on his feet, he saw that Crawler, Kunkle Duster and Pop Step had taken out the other 4. We all good? The 3 nodded at him. Good, you guys need healing, let's move. Crawler knelt down and whizzed up the wall, Pop Step following him. Himiko pushed off a wall and twirled back up the fire escape while Tuya kicked off and scaled a drainage pipe. Knuckle Duster jumped and free climbed his way up as Izuku leant against the far wall. Taking a deep breath, he took several steps before hopping. Kicking off the first wall, he twisted back round to kick off the second, repeating the process until he rolled onto the roof and stood up. You guys can come with us to get healed up? Why should we trust you? Pop Step, we're 3 teens in plastic masks. What about us seems organized enough to spring a trap? Tuya grunted. Just come on, we got medkits. Ooh, a medkit sounds great. Got some bruises that we going to be coming out soon. Crawler put a hand to his ribs. Lead the way. Knuckle Duster just grunted as they began moving. Getting to the streets they crossed, Izuku swan dived off, swinging from the wires again as Tuya and Himiko matched their previous ways, both cackling with excitement. Crawler just sped off the edge as Pop Step jumped, bouncing from his back and grabbing his wrist. The 2 levitated as Knuckle Duster leapt. The trio formed a chain and swung, Knuckle Duster hitting the roof followed by Crawler, who had dropped into a roll, and then Pop Step, who glided down. The 6 began running again as they heard. Freeze, you scum! They turned to see Endeavor charge them. Some punks fighting again? Who are the new brats, huh? Wouldn't you like to now, Silver? Tuya called over. The group kept running as he charged on a collision course. Jade, tell me you've analyzed him. Of course, Izuku grinned. Who do you take me for, Dabi? Vampire? What? The 2 boys rushed to meet Endeavor, while the other 4 kept running. Izuku fell to his knees, ducking under a flaming fist, the heat prickling his skin. As he slid, he began to spin on one leg, sticking his other out to trip the hero up. Tuya grabbed his ankle and began spinning. The hero roared in anger as Izuku grinned. Dabi, it's time to spin. The shit stick. His held out his fist as Tuya kept spinning. The older teen picked up on his message and angled himself. Endeavor's face routinely struck Izuku's fist as they spun in a circle. And you've won an all-expense flight to downtown. Dabi, show the man his prize. He released the hero's ankles, sending him flying over the rooftops. As they turned to leave, a gray cloth trapped Izuku. A new challenger approaching? You're both under arrest for assaulting. You, Eraserhead, you see him try and kill me with that flaming fist? He wiggled and escaped the scarf. That being said, and you're being live-streamed right this second? The trio looked over to see Pop Step and Crawler on the nearby rooftop holding up their phones. Say hi to the world, guys. Izuku waved a hand. Glad people could see us stick it to the silver streak. Hope this doesn't mean trouble for the rest of his kids though. Tuya cheered as he lifted a hand. Another training incident would be so heartbreaking right now. What's you game here? Eraserhead growled. No game, Eraserhead. We're here to do a job, protect the guys you're too busy to help, maybe expose a few things the bigwigs don't want people to hear, Tuya smirked. I'm just here to see what I can do. Very well, Eraserhead sighed as he crouched low. You can be honest in the station. Izuku instinctively moved to the side as the undergowned hero darted forwards, rolling on the floor. The tape wrapped his ankle and pulled on him onto his back with a crash. Lifting his hips and rolling backwards onto his feet, he avoided Eraser's stomp. You think we're lying? Go ahead, buddy, but we're just the little guys looking out for little guys. Izuku nodded, helping everyone who needs it, while the heroes protect the public will protect the person. Hiding behind noble goals is just being afraid to show your true colors. He began weaving between blows, but Eraser was trained. Izuku, not so much. A few strikes landed and he winced at the bruises popping up. These are my true colors, prick. The scarf wrapped in his wrist and he gripped it tightly, pulling it taut. I'm here to help everybody who needs it. Gripping the scarf with both hands, he pulled it. Eraser had clearly not expected the strength Izuku hid as he stumbled forwards into a haymaker. Green eyes met red as they suddenly lit up. He didn't even hesitate as he charged forwards, surprising Eraserhead with a punch straight to the face. Before the blow had even finished landing, he turned and fled in the direction of Crawler and Pop Step. Show's over, guys. Good night. Tuya joined them, sprinting away as the four laughed before disappearing into the night, leaving Eraserhead rubbing a sore nose and Endeavor somewhere apoplectic with rage. Why, you sure we can use here? Crawler asked as he undid the locks for the backstreet entrance to the store. Yeah, I own the place. The door swung open and he gestured everyone inside. Head into the storeroom, there's stairs on the left, go up them and you should get to a cramped hallway. Go to the last door, he instructed the new trio as Tuya and Himiko walked in, the latter of which pouted at him for a moment. I have a guest, remember? He whispered before her face changed and she nodded fervently. The other three waited for them to reach the stairs and they all moved up together. Entering Himiko's apartment, the inhabiting trio moved to get the first aid kits from around the apartment. The visiting trio were instructed to sit at the table in the main room. Once they all reconvened, Izuku spoke up, names and quirks please, we'll go after you if that's all right. Crawler, Koichi Himawari, slide and glide, I can pre-eject a repulsive force from my hands and feet. I can also turn the repulsion into adhesion if I need to, I don't know my top speed. Pop Step, Kazuho Hanayama, leap, I can jump high and long distances, my quirk prevents me from taking damage when I use it, but not from regular falls. I need a solid platform to leap from. Knuckle Duster, Yawo Aguro, quirkless, quirk called Overclock was stolen from me. We already beat the guy that had it given to him, enhances comprehension and movement to the point everything else seems still. Dabi, Tuya Todoroki, cremation, basically hell flame, but stronger and harder to control. Stronger my emotions the stronger my flames, can't handle the top temperatures for too long. Vampire, Himiko Toga, transform. By drinking a person's blood I can take their appearance for a certain amount of time. If I drink more than one person's blood, I can swap between the appearances without need to turn back. It nearly caused a bout of quirk-induces psychosis due to my parents trying to squash it out of me. Izuku hummed. That remind me. He slipped the collar of his shirt off his shoulder. Drink? Himiko stared at him before moving behind him and clamping down on his skin. Jade, Izuku Midoriya, quirkless, since birth, higher than average IQ and will of steel. What brought you three together? It was a few years ago now. God, we were teens back then. Himawari chuckled softly as he dressed Hanayama's wounds. Had this whole thing about a villain factory, a bee with a quirk, just all around a bad time. Knuckle Duster found me and taught me to fight in the beginning, and once we had a handle on it, went to China to try and get some information. 2 years later and we know he's back because it's on the hero radio. A whole mess with the villain factory. Don't remind me, Hanayama groaned, putting her face into Himawari's shoulder. Please, I'd rather forget that part of our story. I disagree. After all you did keep the costume, Hanayama went bright pink, but man, 6 was a tough cookie. I'm just glad we had a guy that knew overclock's weakness. Sensory overload, Izuku muttered, lots of loud noises, bright lights, maybe fire to overstimulate smell? Honestly, it sounds like you could have taken the guy out with some flashbang grenades. Just get him to activate his quirk right before the greeniges go off. Because the hearing and sight are enhanced, it would have taken much longer for him to recover, not less time. Wow, and we didn't say much, Hanayama exclaimed. Senses are enhanced to match speeds that make time seem non-existent. People look stationary? Not incomprehensible, make cars look stationary? Faster but still something calculable, time itself appears unmoving? Even thinking that fast can barely be done on subconscious thoughts. In order to do register and identify objects as if you were moving at normal speeds means that the senses have to be enhanced to dangerously high levels. The only reason you can't hear things at that speed is because you're faster than sound. A bright light could permanently blind eyes that sensitive. You mean we could have beaten him with a flashlight? Himori exclaimed. Maybe if you shone it directly into his eyes, yeah, he would have been blinded for at least a few days. Imagine a sun going off directly in your retinas. That's how bad it would have been. A thunderclap could have deafened him too. Thunderclap? Hanayama tilted her head. You smack both hands either side of a person's head, directly over their ears. Ever seen Sherlock Holmes? Yeah. Discombobulate? Ooh, that. He would have planted his face against the table, had Himiko not been feasting on his shoulder. Yeah, I can see that working on someone like that, but how would you land it? Enhanced vision doesn't mean rear view. Tuya smirked. Midori can tear apart any quirk in a few minutes. He does analysis as a pastime when he's not working. Working? I did say I own the shop downstairs, the 3 of us work there. And it's enough to support you guys? Yeah. It's pretty popular, green tea coffee, not sure if you've heard of it. We have, started last year, right? Yeah. We would have graduated university the year before you locked. Neither of you went? We were busy with jobs so we could be vigilantes. Wonderful, you're all hired. You can start work when you've left your old jobs. Serious? Yeah, if you haven't noticed, it's barely the 3 of us running a cafe, plus with Hanayama's social media skills, we can give Green Tea Coffee its own social media account, free advertising. What, like limited sales and things? Yeah, I've got some desserts stocked up that are seasonally produced. With a social media we can get things out there so much more effectively. Jade's already trending thanks to Pop Step's account. She nodded. You avoiding Endeavor and decking Eraser has made you super popular. He shook his head lightly as she showed him the screen. Watching it back felt surreal. Holy shit, Tuya, we beat your old man in a fight. His eyes widened. Tuya, we fucking fought your old man. The group was silent for a moment before the adrenaline wore off and they all laughed out of anxiety. We beat the number 2 pro hero, without quirks. As it set in, he smiled uncontrollably. Katsuki was right. He could be a hero. I don't believe you, Himawari growled, making us work the night shift like this. He cleaned out a glass. Why the fudge would you even want to have a bar in here? It's a cafe. Because Koichi, Izuku leant on the counter with a wry grin. A bar means we can stay open overnight, and with Iwao handling the stocks now, we can order in alcohol and legally sell it, plus having this in the upstairs area means we can slip in and out a lot more discreetly. You and Kazuho work until closing time, sleep through the late night, early morning and go out vigilante during the days. Himiko and Tuya can stay here working from opening until you 2 come back. The 3 of us can go out and keep up the watch. He tapped his temple. I have this all figured out, man, trust me. You're 16. And yet I run a successful cafe cum bar while in high school and being a vigilante. He shrugged. Tell me again how I'm just a kid. Koichi just narrowed his eyes as he set the glass down. So why aren't you out tonight? Because tonight Iwao wanted to take Himiko and Tuya out to accustom to the area. Himiko was a street rat and Tuya wasn't allowed out much. They don't know the area too well, he does. So you've got the night off? Why do you get to be the boss? Hey, I'll have you know I'm meeting the girl that wants to help tutor Eri tomorrow, so I need my... They heard voices coming from outside the storefront. Koichi put down the glass as they both hopped down the stairs and opened the door. Hey, what the fuck are you doing? A group of figures were surrounding a prone man. A mutant quirk, giving him the features of a lizard. None of your business, kid. Go back to bed. Izuku twitched and walked over to the guy, putting a hand on his shoulder as he turned around. His cheek was smashed by a fist. 2 spins before he hit the ground, dazed. Call me kid again, I dare you. Taking the tea towel from his shoulder, he spun it between both hands, making a makeshift whip. Clear out and don't let me catch you out here again. You lit Dashka? One of the thugs tried charging him, only to get whipped in the face and a punch in the gut. Izuku wrapped the towel around the man's neck and crouched behind him, pulling it tight. Does anyone else feel like pissing me off tonight? Holding both ends of the towel in one hand, he kept the man down and eyed the other guys. I'm going to let your friend go, and when I do, you're going to clear off, and you are never going to let me even see you near this place again, am I clear? CC Crystal. Sir, one stammered. Good. Now, letting one end of the towel go and pushing the man to the floor, he bared his teeth. Scram. Even as he fought for breath, the thug ran away, the collective group supporting him and his dazed cohort. That's why I'm the boss, Koichi, sliding the cloth over his shoulder, the crouched by the beaten man. Sir? Can you hear me? I can each hear. You? He groaned quietly. Wonderful, I'm taking you inside my cafe. Please don't fight us. Izuku looked over to his friend. Koichi, little help here? Together they supported the barely conscious man into the store. Let's get you laid down. Leaving Koichi to support him, Izuku cleaned off the bar and they hoisted him onto it. Can you tell me your name? Shuichi. Iguchi? Well, Iguchi, I have good news and bad news. Be bad news. Bad news is, you're pretty beat up. Good news is we can help. Bitch, help how? Well, just from looking at you, I can tell you haven't eaten. From the state of your clothes, you've been sleeping on the streets. I can give you a roof and a job. We'll hash out details once you're in better shape, which we can also help with right now. Can you remove your shirt? We need to check for bruising. It will be purple, right? Gray and brown actually. If I weren't healing you, I'd be analyzing your quirk to fuck right now, Izuku confessed as he wrapped up a definitely not green patch of skin. Can you keep talking? I want to make sure you're still able to think, see and talk, otherwise I will be rushing you to the nearest hospital. Iguchi just chuckled lightly, or laugh, laughing works too. Come on buddy, work with us here. Got no job to work so? Well you do now, welcome to Green Tea Coffee, you start immediately, first task, don't die on me, another laugh. Why, you got it boss, I've a pull, Ed through worse than this? Not something to boast about bud, Koichi grunted, how many fingers you see? For vision stable enough, not concussed, bruising's heavy but nothing more than muscle deep, no breaks as far as I can see and minimal scrapes from grinding on the floor. The older man stepped backwards. Izuku, this guy's gonna be fine, just give him 5 minutes to recover. The greenette finished wrapping a bandage and nodded. Right, Iguchi, we're going to need to go through some paperwork before you actually start working here and we're going to introduce you to your roommate. Roommate? Well, yeah, apartment's only got one wait, that rat bastard. Izuku suddenly called out. He's been complaining about one bedroom, he's using the other as fucking storage. Koichi just groaned and slapped his hand against his face. So while Kaz and I have been sharing a room in Himiko's place and Iwao borrowing Tuya's couch, the fucker's been keeping a second room hidden from us? I didn't have to listen to him complain about back pain for the last few days at all? The fuck, man? It doesn't matter now, Iwao will be taking Tuya's room and Tuya can split the room with Iguchi here, a sinister grin, and he's on duty for the next month. Koichi chuckled darkly. Oh, you evil, evil bastard. They cackled with laughter at the revenge scheme before Iguchi became more aware of his surroundings. What's going on? You're okay? Izuku smiled at him. Wonderful, we'll get a uniform for you tomorrow so it'll be a training day for you. I can handle the paperwork tomorrow morning, but before that, we need your help quickly. Sure? Nothing nefarious, just a little payback. I'm in. To say Tuya was upset would be accurate. He hadn't realized the storage room was actually a small bedroom. However, they couldn't follow the original plan of sticking Iguchi and him in there, so Iwao took it. He also took the big bed from Tuya's room too, leaving the other two to mattress and cushions until the bed frames arrived. Which would be soon. Neither complained though. Iguchi claimed even the mattress alone was better than the streets, and Tuya had slept on tatami flooring for most his life, so even the carpeted wooden flooring was heaven sent to him. Izuku hummed to himself quietly as he stood behind the counter. Iguchi put himself to work immediately, excited to earn his keep. The Greenette couldn't help noticing how they had a slight increase in mutant quirk customers after he began working storefront. Looking to the door as the bell chimed, he grinned. "Miss Yamamoto," he greeted as she sauntered over, a heterochromatic teen walking behind her, eyeing everything suspiciously. "And this must be Mr. Todoroki." Handing her a cup he smiled. "Eri is waiting for you upstairs. The door is unlocked. Help yourself to refreshments if you wish. If you're willing to stay a bit later, we can discuss the possibility of you moving in with Himiko." "Thank you, Izuku. I'll head right up, Todoroki. This is the boy I told you about, Midoriya Izuku. He does wonderful drinks and I believe he can understand what you're going through to an extent." The Ravenette disappeared through the staff door as Todoroki sat down on the stool. "Who are you?" he growled. "Did my old man hire you to talk to me? I can assure you, Mr. Todoroki, if your father met me, he would greatly dislike me." "Transformation quirk?" "No quirk." Mismatched eyes widened at him. "Yeah, you think about that for a minute." Todoroki remained silent. "As I thought, now you seem incredibly withdrawn." "There's nothing wrong with being dash. I didn't say quiet, I said withdrawn. Take it from someone who isolated themselves for a week, I know." "Well, what do you suggest?" "I'm not making friends." "Why not?" A pause? "I mean really? Genuinely? Friends aren't a commodity or a pet that needs constant care. Friends are a network of people who care about you, a family you choose to have." "I don't have time." "Well, you're here right now, aren't you? What drink would you like?" "Water please, cold." Izuku sighed and rolled his eyes lightly, reaching down into a small fridge under the counter, pulling out a bottle of water. Slamming it against the counter, he caused small ice crystals to form before the drink had frozen entirely. "Cold enough? What's you game here?" "No game, you have a look in your eye." Izuku shrugged. "You're angry at the world, maybe someone particular in it, but deeper than that, you're hurt, you're asking for help." "I don't." Yes, you don't need help, oh mighty son of endeavor. You think?" Neither did he, and look where that got him. He spoke levelly with an undertone of threatening anger. "Nothing but second place, a dead son and a clearly traumatized other one. I'm not even going to talk about the two he seems to neglect. What are their names? Natsuo, Fuyumi? How do you think they'd feel knowing their little brother is pushing everyone away, just like a hand gripped his shirt? Don't compare me to him. Then stop behaving like him." Tuya growled as he stood by his younger brother. "You're coming with me, Shoto, and we're going to have a little talk?" "Says who?" "Says Tuya." The boy growled, grabbing Todoroki's arm. "You can tell Fuyumi and Natsuo that I'm waiting here for them too. Midoriya, I'm taking my break early." "Take it easy on him, Tuya. He's thought you were dead for." "What do you know?" Todoroki spat. "How could you?" "Todoroki, I made this place when I was 15, with the payout I got from the company that overworked my mother and the inheritance I got when that overwork killed her." Green eyes narrowed. "I was 13 when she died. Know why I haven't mentioned my old man yet?" Todoroki opened his mouth. "Because he abandoned us when I was 4. Other people suffer too. Get your head out of your ass before I kick it out." "Tuya, once you're done, get him out. I don't want his attitude here." Going back to cleaning cups, he made sure Todoroki knew he was being watched, eyes never leaving the teen until the door blocked him from vision. He nodded at the paperwork, a level of respect on his face. "I take it you didn't do this yourself?" No," Yamamoto nodded gently. Once I explained the situation, my parents helped me write it." "Well, it's certainly brilliant, but it's ultimately unneeded. I haven't used a CV for any of my other employees and it would be unfair to ask you for one." "Didn't even give me an interview." Himiko folded her arms. "Just dragged me into his apartment, hired me and told me to bite him." "My quirk, I have a dependency on blood due to my parents trying to suppress it. It didn't work, but it did nearly drive me to a psychotic break." She shook her head. "I'm fine now though, thanks to the sessions I have with Izuku. I don't get cravings anymore." "And how often are there sessions?" "Once a fortnight." He pulled his collar to the side. "You can probably tell her favorite point. There was a ring of scarred teeth marks around a clump of skin where his neck connected to his shoulders, least amount of resistance and a point where I won't bleed heavily, takes about 5 mouthfuls and dresses the wound. Are you not worried for infection? My saliva is an antiseptic of sorts, naturally kills of all pathogens. I wouldn't want to get a disease from someone's blood, would I? Himiko shrugged, plus he knows to just say stop and I will. Izuku nodded gently. Now as it is, you can move straight in, as long as you don't mind sharing a bed at this time. We'll get a bed and mattress ordered if you agree to move in. All your bills will be paid for by me and you won't pay rent. I would work here in order to live in this building? Essentially, yeah, he smiled. Everyone else is happy with it, since me paying them only to get the money back seems, well, it seems a bit silly if I'm honest, so I don't charge them anything and they don't get paid very much. Very much. Well, I basically look at what I'd charge them in rent and utilities, deduct that from their pay, anything that wouldn't immediately come back to me I give them. You would be the same? Really? Yes, since you would be in the same position as the others, it would only be reasonable to act the same. That seems acceptable. What would my warring hours be? Well, that depends. Would tutoring Eri factor into your hours? Yamamo shook her head. Wonderful, you can work 5 hours a day for say, 4 days a week? Does that sound fair? Of course, she nodded. When can I begin? You can start immediately. You can also move in as soon as you want to. Ooh, come on, let's go find you a bed. Himiko dragged the poor girl by the wrist out of the office and through the door of the cafe. Izuku sighed and stood up. Tuya had handled the cash register and locked up the safe. Koichi was training Iguchi on the bar equipment while Kahuzo was cleaning up the cafe and readying the bar to open. Iwa was in the stock room organizing the different products in order of priority and what would need restocking the most. He quietly moved to lock up the front, getting as far as pulling down the shutters before he heard a cry of, "Wait!" Turning around, he saw a woman in heels charging over, short white hair with red highlights, dressed in jeans and a sweater vest over a sky blue shirt. Her eyes were framed by a pair of sleek black square glasses. Izuku stared at her as she ran over, stopping by bowling into him and knocking them both over. "Oh, I'm so sorry." "It's no bother, the cement broke my fall," he groaned. "Are you all right, ma'am? What's the problem?" "I'm just looking for a cafe, the green coffee tea shop." "You mean green tea coffee?" She nodded fervently. He just raised an eyebrow and pointed a hand to the sign above the door. There printed in large cursive letters was green tea coffee, lit up by overhead lights shining down onto it. "Oh, is it closed now?" "We're just about to close. Did you want something?" "If it's just a quick drink I can help you." "Actually I was after one of your coworkers. Is the manager still here by any chance?" "Ma'am, I'm the owner of the place," he stated with a deadpan expression. "Oh, but you're so young, I'm sorry. I had assumed you were a part-time worker." She bowed at him. "Let me start over. My name is Fuyumi Todoroki." "Ah, come on through." Izuku held the door open and locked it behind her. "We have a series of apartments upstairs. You're after Tuya, correct?" "Yes, earlier today my younger brother Shoto told me that he'd run into Tuya, which I thought was impossible after the news report, but curiosity got the better of me shortly after I finished dinner. My brother, Natsuo?" "It is all right, Miss Todoroki. Your brother can come at his own discretion. You are not his keeper." Her face flushed lightly as he guided her through the shop floor. "Though if you could please tell your brothers to use the street entrance instead of coming through my store, I would greatly appreciate it." "Oh, yes, of course, sorry," he laughed softly. "Don't apologize so much, Miss Todoroki. It is no skin off my nose. You are quite the contrast to your brothers though. Tuya is much more laid back and speaks more to joke than anything while Shoto, he seemed guarded, to say the least." A small hum. "Yes, you'll have to excuse him for that, his social skills, well we can simply call him inept for the most part. He does not have many friends. The fact he told us one brought him here is as much a miracle as finding Tuya alive if I'm honest." "Ah yes, Miss Yamamo, such a kind woman. She's recently joined on as part of our staff. Also living in one of the apartments upstairs. They are quite cramped at the moment, I will admit, but we make it work. Currently all of our staff lives in these apartments. Tuya just finished for the day, so." A knock at the door. "Tuya? Can we come in?" Sure, hang on a sec." They heard a series of footsteps and a sliding of a chain. "Hey Izadash, oh Yumi, come in," he spoke softly as he let the greenette and his sister in. "Shoto passed my message along then?" She nodded. "Good good, can I get you anything, tea? A glass of? Come home. Yumi come home to ya. Please, mom's on the brink. Endeavor is going harder on Shoto than ever, please come." "For Yumi, I'm supposed to be dead. The public think I'm dead. I've had to take a whole new name just to make sure the bastard doesn't come and hurt these guys. Tuya, please, you have to come home, please, Endeavor. Dad, if he sees you. If he sees me, nothing will change, Yumi. But we'll be a family." A dysfunctional dictatorship of a household is not a family, Yumi. He nearly killed me and then didn't bother trying to search for me before pronouncing me dead. If I go back, shit will get worse. But Shoto and Natsuo will have their brother back. Mom will have you back? Yeah? Well, if Shoto has done as I asked him to, Mom and Nat will have me back anyway, because they'll know I'm here, and that's where I'm be staying. But if you come back, we can be a real family again. And then what? Both siblings fell silent as they remembered Izuku was there. The greenette just folded his arms. "Miss Fuyumi, if Tuya comes back with you and you try being a real family again, then what? He moves back into the household, the media catch wind of it, flock to your home and demand to know what happened. Will anything inside those walls change?" She stared at him in shock. "Seriously? If you were to take Tuya back to your house, show your dad he's alive, do you think anything would change? Or would it just go back to how Endeavor has it? Everyone subjugated under his roof, the Todoroki family entirely under his thumb. As it stands, you can all come and see Tuya as often as you wish without him realizing what's going on. We cowl gather enough evidence from the four of you, go to the police and make a case. Once they confirm Tuya is Tuya and not Mikumo Akatani as we've called him, it would be a concrete case." Todoroki gaped like a fish out of water. "And even if your father changed, would any of you forgive him? Could you forgive him?" I'd try for us to be. To be what?" Tuya sneered. "A real family? Come of it, Yumi. Even if the bastard becomes number one, even if he changes, it doesn't change what he's done to us, to you, to Natsuo, Mom or me, what he's doing to Shoto. None of it goes away just because you want to play pretend and imagine we're a functional family for Yumi. The world doesn't work like that. I just want us all to be Hadash. I am happy." Tuya barked. "I am happy right here. Where I can wake up when I want to, within reason, where the only responsibility I'm given is the one I ask for. Where I can cook what I want, play what I want, talk and interact with who I want, where I can say what I want. In this 2-bedroom apartment, even though it's the size of Endeavor's living room, I feel like the most free man in the world. I am happy right here for Yumi Todoroki, and I will not go back to that Hell's Cape to be part of a little dollhouse so you can live out your fantasy. It's not a fantadash. Miss Todoroki, my father abandoned me when I was 4 years old," Izuku hummed gently. "Forgive me if this seems off topic, but hear me out. My father found out I have no quirk and," he sucked on his teeth sharply, jerking a thumb over his shoulder, "fucked off to America. Mom had to mail the divorce papers to him. For so many days I wondered if he would have stayed if I had a quirk, even a useless little one, like the ability to bend my fingers backwards, or change my hair length and ear size. If I had a quirk like that, would my father still be here? In due time I came to realize I don't care, I'm doing well for myself, on my own, and if he comes back I'll turn him away, the same way he did with my mom and me. I don't want people associating me with someone so useless. Do you think I should let him back into my life? After what he did? If your mother—" "My mother is dead," he frowned, "worked herself to death trying to support the two of us, heart attack in her sleep. Now do you think I should forgive him?" She simply stared in horror for a moment. "Because I don't think you should forgive Endeavor either. Suppose he pushes your mother to a psychotic break, would you still be willing to forgive him?" "I don't. And that's the only answer I need, Miss Todoroki. Your "I don't know" tells me that you would try to, which you shouldn't, because some people aren't worth forgiving, and some just don't deserve it." A week passed after Todoroki visited. In that time, Yamamoto moved into the apartments, comfortably sharing a room with Himiko, melding into the lifestyle rather easily. They added her to the virtual group chat for them all, including things such as shopping lists, issues with the utilities and requests for help in the cafe. Working during the days Saturday and Sunday and evenings on Monday and Tuesday, she took to the responsibilities like a duck to water. Toga also filled her in on his current circumstances, being sworn to secrecy and despite her obvious horror, remained true to her word. Iguchi was reporting the bar being a roaring success. After getting an afternoon to sit down, Izuku was finally able to properly organize a schedule. Toga and Himiko would run it during the day. At some point in the afternoon, Koichi and Kazuzo would clock in, replacing them until the evening, when the cafe shut and the bar opened. About halfway between the cafe closing and the bar closing, Iguchi would take over for them both since the bar would be significantly less busy and most people would be sitting at the counter anyway. Iwa was working during the day, organizing stock and taking in the deliveries. He'd also make sure the bar taps were hooked up currently and the tankers were full. Izuku would be there to open the cafe in the mornings and join in once he returned from school. Katsuki, Kaneki and Tsubura would often join him so they could do homework in one of the booths. Yamamo, or just Momo as she stated once she had moved in, would also join in after school on Monday and Tuesday. On the other weekdays, she'd spend the afternoon and evenings doing homework or tutoring Eri. Izuku often took the counter from Koichi when he arrived as Momo joined Kazuzo in table service. Koichi would be on cleaning duty, which he preferred for some odd reason. After the cafe closed, Izuku would work on the finances, including the income versus expenses of the bar the previous night. To say they were rich would be oversimplifying it. Thanks to his inheritance and the payout, he'd been able to outright buy the building and his starting equipment. The first few profits of the store weren't much, but they had been all his, meaning he could keep improving the bar. Now he had expanded to certain areas, the expenses had grown, but so had the profits. Since both he and Momo would be going to UA in the next year, he had to train up one of the others to cover for him. Koichi and Kazuzo had too much to worry about already, looking for their own place and all. Himiko, they discovered, had dyscalculia, or numbered dyslexia as it was more widely known, so as much as he trusted her, she didn't trust herself to do it properly. Iwao was a no because he found it too boring and preferred to do the literal heavy lifting, which meant he had to choose between Iguchi and Toga to be his temporary replacement. Staring at the paper he sighed, there was still a year between then and now. He could train both of them up until 10 and just ask them. A knock at the door and he looked up from the work. A boy with lavender hair was stood at the door. "Hi." The boy remained silent, regarding him with both curiosity and a mild hint of annoyance. "Can I help you?" "Manager." He spoke gruffly. Izuku fixed him with a glare. "Owner, I win." Surprise stretched across the boy's face. "Bullshit. Try me." Smirking, the lavender-haired boy walked over and put a piece of paper on the desk, over his other files, because I wasn't busy running a business or anything. "Look, as far as first impressions go, you aren't making a good one. I don't need a CV, name, age, quirk, and current education level." Shinso Hitoshi, 16, high school. "Quirkless?" He shook his head. "Then tell me." "Brainwashing," a quiet mumble. "When you answer a question I can give you orders? And you want to work in a cafe? Where you have to talk despite clearly being a mute." A raised eyebrow. "After school on Thursdays and Fridays, from 5 until closing at 8 both days, Saturdays 3 till 8, 11 hours work a week. Sound enough?" Hitoshi nodded. "Good. Because you start this week." Leaning down to his desk, he opened a drawer full of uniforms. "There's a channing room one of the others will show you when you start your first shift. You're on stocks and deliveries with man called Iwao. Since you don't like talking much, you'll be paid by the hour, standard wages. You've got a week to get trained up. Anything else?" I am hired?" Even though I ha-dash. Izuku shook his head and pulled out his phone, texting the group chat. Himiko, Toga, Iguchi and Iwao all came in with grins. "Guys, this is Hitoshi. He's the fresh blood, quirks brainwashing, thinks it's a villain's quirk, and we shouldn't hire him because of it. Can we call off our quirks for him please?" Himiko Toga, "Quirks transform. I need to drink blood for it though. My parents tried to suppress it out of me and I've formed a dependency on blood now. Pleasure to work with you." Mikumo Akitani, "Quirk is cremation. I can create flames so hot they burn blue. It can start peeling my skin if I use it too long. Look forward to getting to know ya." Shuichi Iguchi, you can probably tell my quirk, called Gecko. People don't like me for it. Lots of people here like me enough though. Happy to meet you. Iwao Aguro, quirkless. But I handle all the heavy stuff. Can't wait to break you, little man. Izuka Midoriya, quirkless. I started, own and manage this little cafe and bar. Welcome to the family, Hitoshi. Since you wanna run your mouth without thinking, I'm putting Iwao in charge of your training. Normally it'd be me, but I won't deny there's a small bit of vengeance and vindication going on here. He shook his head. We also have a few other crew members. You'll meet the three of them over time. There's also the possibility of us paying your housing costs, but you'd have to move into one of the apartments upstairs. Now that Momo was tutoring Eri, the small girl have moved apartments live with Himiko and Momo, sharing a room with them. It meant Izuku had a free room now. That bought in 3 more possible occupants. If you were to move in, we'd pay your housing fees instead paying you and then charging rent. Essentially what we do is take off the things such as rent and utility bills from your pay immediately, and then anything left over is given directly to you. If that's the path you wish to take, we can discuss it further after your first shift. I don't want you moving in and deciding the job isn't for you after all. A small smile. Any other questions? No, sir. Good, now go home and sleep. I can see the eye bags from here and I need energy for your first day. You got it, boss. Hitoshi nodded with a small smile. Clutching the bag with his uniform, he headed for the door. Oh, and before you leave, one more thing. He froze in the doorway, turning back to face Izuku, pale as paper. Name tag. He caught the small item. There's a regular here that gives every employee a nickname, but the other customers and delivery guys need your name. Thanks. Don't mention it, Hitoshi. Welcome to Green Tea Coffee. Hey, Miss Momo? Eri asked from her seat. How did you and Papa Aiza meet? Everyone froze at her words. Izuka himself stood dead still with eyes the seas of dinner plates. Eri, what exactly makes Izuku your papa? Himiko asked with a shaky smile. The greenette gulped as the child, his daughter, hummed in thought. Well, Grandpa said that a papa is an adult who is really kind and protects you. Papa Aiza looks after me, gives me food and makes sure I sleep, so he's my papa. Still nobody mved, did? Is that bad? No, Izuka answered immediately, moving from the kitchenette and crossing the room. If you want me to be your papa, I'll be your papa. Eri, kneeling by the chair, he smiled. I'm still little compared to other adults though, so there will be things I'll get wrong, but if you're okay with that, I'll be your papa. She nodded and he hugged her tightly. So how did you and Miss Momo meet? It's not that interesting of a story if I'm honest. It's no good for a bedtime story. I just came to the cafe regularly and when I saw you alone at a table, I asked your papa who would leave such a cute little bean on her own, when he said you were studying for big school while you stayed with him, so I just had to come and help you. Okay, Auntie Momo. Once again the world stopped. Eri, how am I why your auntie? Grandpa said a mama is a adult like a papa, but if a lady isn't with papa she's an auntie, like you're not with papa, so that makes you Auntie Momo. She stated, proudly as Momo strode over and peppered the top of her head with kisses. Eri giggled as she smiled under the affection. Izuku stepped back, nodding to the others. Tuya, Himiko, could you come with me for a minute? There's a few things we need to do downstairs. We'll take a while, so don't be afraid to go to bed without us. She nodded in response and the trio left. Moving into Tuya's apartment, the group got changed. As he reached the balcony, Izuku looked out at the view of the city. It was always quiet from this perspective, but he knew otherwise. With a heavy sigh, he climbed to the rooftop, where the other two shortly joined him. They readied themselves for the night and began slowly, jumping over the alleys. Tuya had finally sourced them decent equipment, from a black market businessman named Jiren. It wasn't much, just wrist-mounted grappling lines and blunt weapons. The zip ties they could by themselves and anything else was unneeded. The sextet shared a single untraceable phone, since there was a rota and they tended to stick together for the shift. Izuku currently held it in his pocket as they leapt over another street. He flipped in the air, firing a single cord to the other rooftop, pulling himself over with a heave. Tuya jumped and swung from the nearest telephone pole while Himiko casually fell backwards into the wires, trampolining up again. Reconvening on the rooftop, they sped away into the night. Motherfucker, Tuya hissed as they watched the unmarked cars pull into a currently closed dock. A boat arrived and began unloading a shipping container. Izuku kept watching through his binoculars as Tuya looked in another direction. Looks like this is the advanced party. 2 lorries, 3 o'clock. Izuku grit his teeth as he looked around the area still. I can't find her. Neither can. Izuku paused, refocusing on a particular figure. Wait, found her. He chuckled. Looks like you're more of a higher up than we thought. He chuckled, nudging the struggling captive by their feet. Bloodied and bruised, they were tied up with rope and gagged with a handkerchief. They made more noises as they thrashed angrily. Hey, be grateful we aren't a rival gang. At least this way you all get to live. Unless you don't want to, that is, Tuya added, a small flame dancing around his fingers. Their captive's eyes widened in fear before they stilled. Good pet. Izuku continued watching the area as a disguised Himiko stood beside the main leader. She had the appearance of the right-hand goon. Better than another thug as they'd assumed their captive was. The container was opened and Izuku felt anger bubble up his throat. They were shipping people. On each of their faces, he could see fear and panic, while the goons just sneered and laughed. Himiko began tapping her thigh as they saw the occasional groping. Tuya, move. Jumping from their perch atop a building, they swung down into the darkness of the shipping yard. Using the shadows to their advantage, the two moved silently. Izuku slipped on some metal knuckles as Tuya gripped some metal batons, using his quirk to make them hotter. Together they began silently taking down the goons, working their way to the center. An alarm began sounding as their fight got less and less discreet. Boys, does the term subtlety mean anything to you? Himiko landed beside them, pulling out her own weapon, a rather dense bow staff. Not now, vampire, just swing. Soon the traffickers began flying back as they were struck by one of the three. It didn't take long until they had the leader between the three of them. He snarled as his quirk activated, turning his fingers into blades that extended to the floor. Now, you lot are gonna be sorry. Oh, a transformation quirk? I'm so scared. You should be with your emitter quirks. Don't you remember? The classification triangle? Transformation beats? Bud, I don't have a quirk, but what this'll be even easier do have, is a taser. Izuku grinned as the boss spasmed, blue lines arcing over his body until he stopped, smoking lightly and fell over without a sound. Wordlessly, he gestured for the other two to begin tying the criminals up and making sure the victims were safe. A dial tone in his ear as he grinned. You are his mask. What? A voice snapped. Detective, you sound tired. Maybe you should get a coffee. I'll leave one for you at the docks, along with a human trafficking ring, and there would be victims. I'd hurry though, there's only so long until the actual workers get here. Jeju? Detective, give me one reason why I shouldn't help you? How did you get my personal number? Oh, it's startlingly easy to pickpocket a man whose sole focus is beating the shit out of you. Tell Eraser he needs to get deeper pockets. Literally, a loud sigh and heavy groan. Fine, I'll get a squad together and we'll head down there. You aren't going to be there, are you? Nope, he popped the P, but when you do the report, make sure you note that it's a sex trafficking ring too. The victims have far too little clothing to be regular smuggled workers. The majority are also female, so you're welcome for that. Thank you for your help, Jade, but you should leave it to the pros. That's funny, Izuku sighed. I don't see any pros nearby. Do you think they took the night off or something? Kneeling by the leader, he hung up the phone before the detective could respond. Finding an address book alongside some names, he snapped photos on his personal phone. Jiren wasn't a good guy. He mainly looked out for himself, but he was a broker, so information was a specialty of his. Izuku smirked. Maybe he could appeal to his sense of morality and humanity, businessman to businessman. Himiko and Tuya returned to his sides and the three began scaling the containers as sirens wailed in the distance. And we're all here why? He stares at the main room of his apartment. Everyone has gathered in the sole room, divided between the areas. Eri was eating breakfast along with Tsuchi and Momo. Koichi, Kazuho and Iguchi were sat watching the morning news while Himiko, Tuya and Ueo were in the kitchen, making breakfast. Nobody turned to him, instead all just shrugging and returning to their previous activities. As much as the sight warmed his heart, the question was meant to be answered. Tia? A communal space? A communal space? My left butt cheek it is. This is my apartment. And? Himiko smirked. Do you not want us here? Don't you put words in my mouth, woman. Why are you all here now? Breakfast. Eri cheered loudly. Auntie Momo said something about everyone being together, and Auntie Himi said we should all visit you. Uncle Toy was happy to get uncles round too. He smiled softly. It was my idea to have breakfast, because downstairs is always so busy and everyone is sleepy when it closes. Oh, that reminds me, Izuku. Iguchi turned his head. I have the sheets for the bar last night. I left them in the register. Thanks, Iguchi. I'll get. They were interrupted by the news. And today's newest story, a group of vigilantes apprehended a gang responsible for the human trafficking Mizudafu police have spent months trying to stop. The mail anchor began. Reports came in that the precinct got called by the lead vigilante himself, Jade, as he, Vampire and Dabi fought the criminals and restrained them with zip ties. Of all things, can you believe it, Miyagi? Not in the slightest, Fukushima. I mean, these vigilantes who work day jobs like you and I, doing an investigation on their own, without training or equipment, were able to find these guys who knows how quickly while the police have been chasing leads for months. It makes you wonder, just how hard is the police force working? Izuku allowed himself a small smirk at the report before Momo got up and walked over to him. Grabbing his wrist, she marched him towards the bathroom. Excuse us, she spoke flatly, slamming the door behind them. He leant on the edge of the bath as she locked the door and whirled on him. One reason, one why I shouldn't hand you over myself. Momo, don't pretend I'm an idiot, she hissed at him. You'd have to be a complete moron to not recognize Pop Step, Crawler and Knuckleduster when you're working with them regularly. Then 3 new vigilantes appear when their alter egos get jobs here? Not buying it, Midoriya. Even if I admitted something like that to you, it's 6-1, granted a very influential and powerful one, but one nonetheless. Not to mention Momo, I'm your boss. They'd probably detain you under the assumption you worked with us and got cold feet. He folded his arms. Face it, Miss Yaoyorozu, you don't have a leg to stand on. I don't care. What you're doing is illegal, and my mom died because her employer forced her to work illegal hours. Then they tried illegally reducing the payout they owed me. The business I bought this place off tried illegally overcharging me. Even now competitors are trying to illegally squash me out of the market. Why? Because I'm quirkless, Miss Yaoyorozu. The laws aren't meant for people like. He was silenced as she crossed the room in 2 strides and smacked him across the face. The law applies to everybody, Midoriya, even you. Standing up, he smirked with nearly impossible mirth. Catching her lower jaw in one hand, he rubbed his thumb along her chin. Why haven't they protected me, HM? My mother was underpaid because of mind disability. Living costs more than average for me. I'm more likely to kill myself after my next birthday than any other grouping of people, and if I somehow manage to get through that, I have the highest likelihood of going without a job by the time I'm 30, then homeless by 35, before I've been killed in some back alley before I'm even 50. Staring into her eyes, he raised an eyebrow. You want a good reason to not report me? I don't care if you do, because neither will the police. It takes on admission before they give up on me. Cops will stop coming by for a morning brew. Patrols will actively move around the shop. They'll laugh in your face before they spit in mine. And with any luck, this place will be robbed, ditched and destroyed before New Year's, and you'll find my corpse hanging from the rafters in a faked suicide. Himiko, Tuya and Iguchi will be back on the streets. Most likely villains, and they won't be happy with you. Kohuzo and Koichi are prisoned and probably killed in there. Iwao's dead by the end of the week, and little Eri will be in the foster system before her abusers find her again. His tone was cutthroat as he looked down to her face, a small lick of fury etched onto his. Now are you willing to bet all of that on the possibility I could be some vigilante that just did a job better than the police have been doing, for free as a civil service instead of getting paid to do it, only to sit at the desk and play solitaire instead? So what? Are they your insurance? Miss Yaoyorozu, I would never use a person like that, but you need to realize actions have consequences and the world isn't fair about them either, so think about that. You're bluffing. Am I? Am I really? The tension in the room threatened to suffocate them both as they had a staring contest. Way I see, you got 3 choices here. Which are? 1. Report me and live with any and all of the consequences, including death, possible villains with vendettas and a child being found and returned to abusers. 2. Feign ignorance and keep going about your life. If we're ever uncovered, we'll even agree you never knew. You can go on with your life holding our secret to your chest. Or there's option 3. His smirk turned more enticing. You could join us. Join you? She hissed. You're a Vigilante. I want to be on UA's hero course. It'd be hard to get on even Gen Ed from prison. I never said you had to join us on the field. Her eyes narrowed at him. Have you ever heard the term, guy in the chair, though I believe it'll be more of gal in the chair in your case? Momo just glared at him. So, what do you say? The 6 were gathered around a single point. Right, everyone knows their place. Iwao back room. Make sure the door is locked. Kahuzo, Koichi, upstairs. Tuya, Himiko and I have downstairs. Make sure it's cleaned. Right? Everyone nodded as they put their fists together in the center. Then go. The groups separate and entered the building. In the dark room, the trio stopped and tried to see anything. Let me just. Tuya turned on the lights and immediately they found themselves staring at a group of gangsters around a supply of drugs. Guns and quirks aimed at them. Oop, the lights turned back off and they split up. Zigzagging left and right, Izuku charged down the middle as Tuya strafed left and Himiko went right. Together they were able to trap the group against the back wall without escape. Punching the first man in the gut, he planted a hand on his shoulder and vaulted the doubled-over body. Snapping his feet apart into a split, he contacted 2 thugs' temples, dropping them both instantly. Keeping one foot in place, he used the momentum from moving the other to spin around the first man's neck, keeping his grip on the shoulder. The headlock he trapped the man in lasted for all of 10 seconds as his body weight finally brought the pair down. His human springboard was forcefully put to sleep as his head bounced on the concrete. Rolling as he hit the floor, Izuku tossed one of his iron knuckles into the gut of the thug that fired high-pressure air bullets at him, kicking his head as the greenette came to a stop under his bent body. Getting to his feet, he took in the scene. Tuya and Himiko were both finishing off their groups while Iwao was exiting the back room. A flash of pain in his side and he pressed a hand to whatever bruise he had, only for his hand to grow warm and sticky. Pulling his hand away revealed blood coating his glove. Shit, he mumbled, now ignoring the pain. Kahuzo and Koichi landed either side of him and turned to face him. We got them all, Jade, Koichi grunted. Police are on their way now. Kahuzo tossed him the phone. Good, Dobby, Vampire, Knuckleduster, we're moving now. Together the sextet reached the exit and began scaling the walls to a rooftop. Freeze. Detective Tsukachi of Mizudafu PD, Jade. Izuku looked back at the man training a gun on him. Come on now, detective, if I froze up, I wouldn't be much help, would I? He quipped, enjoy your night. I sure as hell did. Rejoining the 5 before a shot could be fired, Izuku did his best not to let his injury show. They crossed streets and alleys like shadows and moved silently in the night. His side grew ever warmer, but he was determined not to let them see it. He wasn't weak. As they reached the apartments, they all split up. Closing his door, Izuku allowed himself to begin stumbling, clutching his burning side with one hand as he rifled through his kitchenette for a med kit. Focusing on his breathing, he pulled his shirt off and pressed it into his side until he could find those damn bandages. He was so busy looking for them, he didn't notice his front door open, close, and lock. Christ, Izuku! Momo rushed over and tried to talk to him. Oh my God, were you shot? When the other 3 asked me to make sure you were all right, I figured you'd been cut or something. Not. I'm fine. Despite his efforts, he stumbled slightly, slamming a cupboard with more force than he needed. Just gotta get bandages, some painkillers. Trying his best to march, he made a point of ignoring her concern. Sweet Mother Mary, Izuku, your shirt is supposed to be black. Not crimson. It's fine. He barked, slapping his hand to his head for a moment to try and cure his double vision. I'm perfectly fine. Opening the door to the bathroom, he all but fell into the room, using his arm not currently squeezing his guts to hold himself up on the side of the bath. Go bed or something, I am fiffin'. His arm, which had been shaking heavily, finally gave and he crumpled against the bath, hauling himself into a sitting position. You aren't Izuku, You're bleeding out in your bathroom from a wound that's dyed a black shirt. You need? What I need, he drawled out, is those fucking bandages. Suddenly, he launched his torso over the cabinet under the sink, letting out a huff as he hit the floor, fingers just shy of the objective. Momo sat him back up and grabbed the medkit, kneeling by his side. Thank you. No go be bed. No. I said go bed. And I said no. I don't need your help. I'm fifian by myself. He barely formulated a growl, swiping for the bandages, and missing horribly. You aren't Izuku, you've been shot. I am fine, I don't need help, I don't need a quirk, I don't even need my own mama. Woozy from blood loss, he began losing track of his thoughts. I done just fifany on my own. Now gimme. Trying for the bandages again, he frowned as he missed them. Izuku let me. No. I can do it myself. I grew up on my own, I made a livin' on my own, I amma die on my own, and there's not a thing you can. You can. Stop me. His head lolled sideways. A hand caressed his cheek. Izuku, Momo whispered, it's okay to be mad at her. She left me on my own. Looking up again he pouted, well I showed her. I don't need Bakugo. I don't need nobody. I'm just fiffin' on my own. She didn't leave you. I coulda got a job. We could moved away, but no, she had to go and kill herself. Because she didn't want me. Tears pricked his eyes as Momo continued dressing his wound. Hey. I said I know what you said Izuku, but you've been flipping off the toilet for 3 minutes. I don't want you to die. Why you only saying that cuz I'm ya bosses? He looked away. You're just trying to get in me good books. You don't want me around. He winced as the bandage was pulled tightly. Say that again and I'll bandage you up so tightly your legs will go numb. You can't scurry me. He smiled dopily. Nothing can scare me. I not even afraid o' death. An arm waved wildly. I want you around Izuku. That's just cuz I'm ya bosses. Leaning his head back he looked at the ceiling. I'm tired, gonna take a nap. No, Izuku. His eyes fell closed as his head rolled sideways. The darkness was nice. It felt warm and comforting. He knew he was laying in bed. He had a pillow on his chest, which he'd always clutch in his sleep. Sliding a hand under his pillow, he kept his eyes closed, trying to remember how exactly he got here. A thug had caught him in the side with a bullet during his charge the previous night. Lots of blood had been absorbed into his clothing. He'd stumbled around the apartment to find a first aid kit. The pain in his side confirmed he'd forgotten to take painkillers in his delirium. The kitchenette would need to be cleaned, his bathroom would need serious bleaching, not to mention he'd need to change the bandages, applied by Momo. His eyes snapped open and he sat up, hoping the others weren't using his apartment as another communal breakfast ground. I'm right here, her voice came from behind him. He twisted his body to look back at her, hand going to his side as he grunted in pain. Lay back. I'm fine. Swinging his legs over the edge of the bed he gripped the mattress with both hands. Let's just get to work, he mumbled. I'll get dressed in the... His attempts to move were stopped as pain seared from standing up. There were hurried movements behind him as he fell to one knee. I'm fine, a low growl as he stood back up. I'll recover. Not if you don't rest. I don't need rest. He would have turned on his heel had the pain not been near agonizing. Instead he opted to slowly turn around. I'm okay. You're not, Momo insisted. Izuku, your body is we dash. I'm not weak, he snarled out. My body will do as I tell it to. It will cope with whatever I do to it. Is that why you're littered with scars? So I got pushed down the stairs in middle school, or crammed into lockers or cornered down alleys, so what? You should have told the teach dash. They either encouraged it or did it. His temper was growing. Calm down. I am calm. She recoiled slightly as his snap. If this is you calm, I'd hate to see you upset. Her eyes narrowed at him. He scowled at her. You know what? Fine, you say you're fine, but don't come crawling to me when you collapse. I'd rather curl up and die than crawl for help. She froze. They just kick me while I'm D-dash. His eyes went wide in shock as his cheeks stung a red mark evident on the side of his face. Momo's head was bowed as she shook on the spot. I didn't think you were serious last night. As she lifted her head to stare at him, he could see tears in her eyes and a frown wobbling between anger and melancholy. But fine, if you really want life to be like that, you can die on your own for all I care. She stormed from the room. Momo, wait. Guilt washed over him as he tried to move after her, the pain flaring as he took a step and forcing him down to one knee. The door slammed in front of him as he found himself in the dark of his room. Alone. Closing his eyes for a second, he calmed his shaking breath and sat down on his bed, spitefully ignoring the pain in his side. HD could handle it, alone. Snatching a roll of bandages left lying there, he observed the wound in the mirror and took the reddened bandages off. They clung to his skin as he prized it off alone. It was hard holding the fabric in place as he wrapped his gut again, but he did it alone, like always. Opening the curtains was pointless since he'd just sleep the day away and recover. Finishing up on his torso, he used what was left to cover the bruises and scrapes on his arms and legs. Laying on his bed, he felt something near his head missing. His hair felt still compared to when he was waking up. Had Momo been stroking his hair while he slept? No, that was impossible, especially since it meant she'd have to be by his. She'd rested his head on her lap. Fuck. She took care of him when he'd passed out from blood loss, and how'd he repaid her? By saying he'd rather die than ask for help. Some fucking genius he was. Rolling onto his uninjured side, he tried blocking out the tears as guilt and sadness overwhelmed him. Once again he was laying in the dark, crying alone. Always alone. Katsuki eyed him as he quietly cleaned glasses. Dikairu, what happened? No, why do you ask? 'Cause you're slower than usual, quieter too. Quispy and Fangs haven't said a word. Ponytails barely made an appearance. Eyebags is as lost as I am. It's all right, cats, I swear. Right, because that's why you've been slouching the entire day. A pause. You ate lunch alone at school. You never do that. The greenette sighed. I cocked up all right? I was cleaning out the machine talking to Momo about the new hire. I misfired the machine and it fired some steam into my side. Nice burn going on. Momo insisted we take care of it, but we didn't do much more than bandage it before you stopped her from trying to help. He winced at the clipped tone. Izuku, the world stopped. Don't try and bullshit me. I've known you since before diapers. I've seen how you struggle on your own because you're afraid of asking for help. Those wankstains we used to call teachers aren't a good. Cats, I appreciate it, but those were the earliest stages of my life, even Mom. Even she thought I'd shatter if the breeze changed too quickly. You know what I felt after I got over the grief? I felt relief. What kind of bastard feels relief after his only parent died? Katsuki remained silent. A sick, twisted one. That's who. Izuku. Katsuki, I'm a monster. I don't deserve help. Even if I did, I couldn't ask for it. Hospitals turned me away. The police skimmed over my reports. It wasn't until I got out of that neighborhood did I finally find a supportive community. It was an MLF nest. Of course it wouldn't support you, but the world isn't like that. It doesn't matter, Katsuki. The processes and mechanisms are too far ingrained. No, it's not, because I'm still here, Katsuki reasoned. I'm here and you didn't push me away. You didn't let me turn into one of them. You never broke under that pressure, Izuku. That's how I know you're a Dikairu. But I did break, cats, just not in a way you can see. Midoriya, don't. A soft, slow voice, measured, patient. Just look around. You got a nice cafe, good staff, captive consumer base. You're not even in uni just yet, and here we are with an income letting you live life how you please. Please just look into therapy, okay? I don't need it. Clipped and short, Izuku began retreating into his shell again. No, you don't, but it's worth making sure, right? Maybe. Midoriya, it's worth being sure that you're okay, right? Right, he acquiesced with a heavy sigh. A figure sat down next to Katsuki. Are you Izuku Midoriya? They spoke in a raspy voice. Who's asking? Shigaraki? As in Mr. Shigaraki, the guy I served at a lemonade stand like a decade ago? You remember him? He was my first customer, cats. Of course I remember him. Izuku leant on the counter. How do you know him? I'm something of a student to him, he can't come see you in person, but he wanted to. Oh. Yeah, a wad of notes was placed onto the counter. He wanted to give you this. He's impressed that you've built up such an incredible cafe, his words exactly. Well, I'm not sure what to say, thank you very much. This is, well, it's a lot of money. He called it a reward, because you stuck to the ideal you told him about back then. You've worked hard and he wanted to show that hard work gets rewarded. Do I get a name for you, O messenger? Tamura. They spoke after a few seconds of thought. Right, well, Tamura, this is a very generous donation. Is there anything you'd like? Coffee, white please, lots of sugar. I want to know if this place is as good as I hear it is. I'm not sure just what people are saying about this place, but I'd like to think we do a good job. Preparing a cup, he slid in front of Tamura, smiling lightly. Green tea coffee does its best to give the best drinks it can make. Tamura drank with his pinky raised, sipping gently at the liquid. Izuku turned his back to deal with more cups and orders while Tamura continued tasting his product. It's good, he mused quietly. I don't leave my home much, so. Well, that's simply want, do Mr. Tamura. I request you come here at least once a week. It does a person good to leave their abode every now and again. You want me here? Well, I'm just trying to help you smile. This place is about as quiet as they come, so an introvert such as yourself shouldn't be overwhelmed here. A small scoff and smirk. Very well, Mr. Midoriya. I'll be back sometime next week. Thank you for the drink. Some change was placed on the counter as he turned to leave. Look forward to seeing you, Tamura. He grinned as the man left the room. He's a character. The facade instantly dropped as he looked at Katsuki. No kidding, bastard looked ready to kill anyone that pissed him off. Katsuki sipped his drink. Can I get a slice of shortbread? The biscuit was placed in front of him. Thank you. I don't trust him. So you shouldn't. No one just comes by to drop off that much cash. I wonder if he does know Shigaraki or if the old man spoke about us and some blue-collar heard about us. You think he'll try sabotage you? Possibly, which is why I want him to keep coming back. If I can see him, so can the cameras. The law may not support me, but it will support the business. Corporate espionage is illegal in different ways. If he's trying anything nefarious to the place, we'll know, as will the police, he added, even if they don't do. On that note, I think it's time you spoke to Ponytail. I'll let Quispy know you want her in your office. The greenette let out a low groan and nodded, putting the rag under the counter and marching towards his office. Yes, sir? Izuku winced at the clipped, official tone in her voice. Tuya said you wanted to talk to me? I owe you an apology. His hand moved before she could speak. Please, just sit and hear me out. Please? Very well. It was like a knife of cold detachment twisting in his chest. She walked past the chairs and moved around the desk, perching against it next to him. Internally he celebrated the small bit of progress. What is it you're apologizing for? Or not? Maybe it was just subconscious cynic they'd gotten on so well until the argument 2 nights ago. He still didn't know how she'd avoided him the entire day, but it didn't matter now. Taking a deep breath, he closed his eyes. What I said a few nights ago, it was uncalled for. I owe you an. Did you mean it? She shook her head at him, a frown on her face. Izuku closed his eyes, standing up and walking to the other side of his desk, keeping his back to her. You have to understand, Momo, I lived a decent portion of my life surrounded by people who literally wanted to kill me. My mother treated me as if I would break if glass hit me. A soft gasp as he heard her shuffle. Izuku? Asked Katsuki. When I mourned my mother, I locked myself away in my room, determined to not hear anyone's condolences, because life has never been fair to me. I needed to handle it on my own. I handle everything on my own. Teachers and authority figures, I can't trust them. Even the hospitals in my area used to just sneer and say good riddance. I had to call a different hospital to get an ambulance for my mother. That's hardly reason enough to. Momo, please. He let out a heavy sigh. It's not easy to rationalize it or explain it, but I just. Even in school, where teachers are supposed to protect you, they'd push me and call me names with the rest of them. Nizu cleared up the area, but none of new ones were actively interested in helping me. Out of sight, out of mind. So long as I stayed out of their way, they didn't get into mine. It was then I started actively fighting back, instead of just discreetly sabotaging them. But Katsuki. is an exception, not the rule. You have to understand that I told him not to get involved, lest he be dragged down with me. I forced him to leave me alone because if he stuck with me he'd just be a target. Then Mom died and he began trying to support me and the whole investigation happened just after it. Of course that didn't stop the teachers saying Mom was lucky to have died, so she didn't have to live and see me be a disappointing waste on society. His knuckles clenched. What I said back then was uncalled for. I was clearly in a state of delirium and should not have been talking, however Don't say you meant it. He turned around to see Momo, sitting on the edge of his desk, staring at him as tears fell down her face. Don't, please. You deserve help as much? This isn't about deserving it, Momo. Even then I just had this conversation with Katz. Walking to her, he smiled sadly. Well, you can ask for help. And what? Drain more resources from the people that actually need it. Don't say that. She put her hands on his chest, leaning into him. You know that's not true. It is. He barked, grabbing her wrists and lifting them off his body. I was told when I was younger I'd amount to nothing, that I am nothing, and here I am, calling a hospital when anyone else needs it more than I. You were shot. That doesn't matter. Startling her, he leant to try and catch Momo as she fell onto his desk. So what if I was shot? I'm just good for nothing, quirkless Izu Midoriya. I'm meant to be expendable. Now leaning over her, his eyes crinkled. Come on, Momo, you can't say that I'm worth something here. Except I can and I will. Look at me, Momo. All I've done is kill my own mother and open a cafe that's mediocre at. Eri, Tuya, Himiko, Koichi, Kazuo, Iwao. Her eyes locked onto his. Iguchi, Hitoshi, me, everyone here is here because of you? A shallow, hollow laugh. Yeah, I conned the Yaoyorozu heiress into working for me. I chose to do what I've done. No one's coerced, forced, or pressured me to do anything. Say otherwise and I'll hand my 2 weeks' notice in right now. Momo, please, a bittersweet smile. I'm not worth it. That's what this whole conversation is about, dumbass. You are worth it. You are worth it 1,000,000 times over. It's funny, the same morning you threatened to report me, you're arguing with me about my worth to get a gunshot wound looked at. Standing back up, he helped Momo sit again. Momo, I'm not the guy you think I am. Are you helping people? I do my best. Are you hurting people maliciously or unnecessarily / No, never. Then I think you're Izuku Midoriya, boneheaded dumbass but all-around nice guy who does what he can for who he can. Patting his cheek gently, she smiled warmly. He rested his hand against hers and closed his eyes. You're brilliant, Izuku. Don't you dare think otherwise, and no, I'm not saying it because you're my boss. I'm saying it because you're my friend. I do care about you, more than you probably think. A sly smile before she hopped off his desk. Now, next time you get hurt, you'll let the other know, right? No, but I won't stop them from asking or telling you. I suppose that's the best I can ask for right now. A warm smile before she sashayed out of the room. Izuku sighed and sat back down to look at paperwork. Eri was busy coloring in a picture book as the others gathered in the kitchenette. Izuku coughed into his hand lightly before gritting his teeth. Momo knows? Momo knows what? Tuya began looking around. Nervously, pulling at his collar. She knows. He lifted his shirt, revealing fresh bandages. Meaning tonight, it's just Vampire and Dobby. Well, on the field anyway. He shook his head. I made these. The Ravenette held out a hand. In her palm lay several earpieces. I've also given us access to the satellite network my dad made. You now have a permanent eye in the sky, along with me here to give support. Momo, we know what you want to do. Are you sure this is the right choice? After this, she lifted Izuku's shirt and pointed to the bandages. I feel there's little choice to make sure my friends don't end up dead in the night. A pointed look at the greenette before she continued. And it's best to get experience as soon as you can, right? A sheepish smile before there was a knock at the door. Izuku grabbed a kitchen knife and held it behind his back, walking to the door. After quickly looking through the peephole, he turned around and waved to Eri. Everyone nodded and quickly moved around. Himiko and Momo snatched Eri and her book up, retreating to the bedroom. Koichi and Kazuo began cleaning the kitchen while Tuya and Iwao practically vaulted the sofa and changed the TV channel. Izuku opened up the door to see a man in a red beak with golden trimmings facing him. Hello? He raised an eyebrow. My name is Kai Chisaki. I was wondering if you've seen my niece, Eri? My father often spoke of this place with her. The name rings a bell? Izuku rubbed his chin, looking into the distance. He snapped his fingers. That's right, we had a customer downstairs. He'd bring his granddaughter with him every now and again. Told us it was the only times he could see her while she was staying at his friend's, I think? Yo Tuya? Sup? You remember where that old man said his granddaughter was staying? Details? She was that airy kid. All I remember is the horn on her forehead. It was on one of her sides, because she took out some cups with it. I know, Iwao interrupted. Said she was on the other side of town while he handled business. Some unsavory guys were looking to use her against him. Izuku nodded. Does that mean it's safe for her again? Yes, it's... Well, boss is in critical condition, but he's alive. The business was handled so it's safe, but it's not perfect. Ah, I understand. Izuku shook his head. Shame, he was quite a good customer, always left a nice tip. Eri was the sweetest too, gave us some drawings whenever she visited. Each one was the animal she saw on the way to the cafe. He chuckled. Well, sorry we can't be of help, guys. I'll let whoever brings her next time you're looking. Yes, please do. She's rather important to me. I'm rather stressed about it. Maybe drop by sometime and we can give you a tea, calm your nerves a bit. On the house, of course. Losing a family member and then another going missing is a horrible ordeal. Possibly. Chisaki gave a small nod. Sorry for disturbing you. It's no bother. Sorry we couldn't be of help. Smiling once more, Izuku closed the door and frowned. All right, looks like I've got a job to do. Not tonight. Momo came from the bedroom and walked over to him, locking the front door before facing him. You are resting? But Clearly he's alive, otherwise they would have admitted he died. He's either too important to kill or Chisaki is attached to him somehow. And he's in danger. So are you, she frowned at him, trying to match his height. A grin as he looked to her pouting face. No offense, Momo, but how are you going to? Her finger jabbed his side and he winced. Like that, don't screw with me tonight, Izuku. You are staying here, until I'm happy for you to go gallivanting around again. But Momo, they will cope. Crossing her arms, she radiated disapproval. Izuku shrunk slightly. I am not allowing you to use vigilantism to cover your suicidal nature with good intentions. Stay here. I'm not a dog. You're not a child either, but here you are behaving like one. A low series of oaths from their apparent audience as Izuku felt himself go red. Says the one who gave me the silent treatment. I can do what I want. As can I. Not if it's going to get you killed. They began a staring contest. Oh, for the love of, Tuya groaned, putting his hands over Eri's ears, just bone already. You're killing us over here. Shut up, Tuya. They both called over, growing blushes on their faces. I'm going out. Then you'll be locked out? You wouldn't dare. She smirked evilly at him and straightened her back at the shift of power. Want to test that theory? I have a key. I can make a new lock and keys. He narrowed his eyes. You do go ahead, boss, and try me. You'll break first, I know you. Will I? Her smirk faltered at his tone. After all, a bullet wound didn't do it. The cold, the collar of his shirt was jerked down as she clutched it. Their faces drew level. Doesn't stand any chance. Her eyes shone in determination. Come on, you know you can't stop me. Oh, I don't have to stop you, I just have to keep you busy. And how are you going to do that, I can think of a few. Himiko giggled. Some even involve me and the rest of us. Himiko, they both warned, continuing their contest, despite the tomato color their faces had gone. A metallic click caught his attention and he looked down to his wrist. Momo had somehow handcuffed them together. Turning back to her incredulously, she smirked victoriously at him. A hand patted his face. I win. As she tried turning around, her shoulder jerked and nearly aced her to fall over. Izuku put his free arm on her shoulder, wrapping their connected arms over her waist to catch her. Silencing a chuckle, he heard the others laugh behind him. No, he whispered, I think I win. Oh God, Izuku, she moaned, putting her face into the pillow, you're so good. Only because you're so tight, he grunted, pressing into her harder. Her fingers curled, clutching the pillow so hard it was in danger of ripping. Moving one hand, he calmly ran his fingers through her hair, before trailing down to the back of her neck. Gently, he wrapped his hand around it, lifted her slowly. Momo let out a groan, tilting her head back to face him. How can you hide this from the world? It's a crime against humanity. Her hands were still holding the pillow as her back curved into a half circle. Smirking as her eyes rolled backwards, he kept pulling until her head rested against his chest. Well, I can't exactly offer this on the streets, can I? Everyone would give me funny looks. Letting her lay back down, Izuku leant forwards, pushing further in. Still, your massages are the best, she groaned as his hands kneaded her back. How did you even know I had back pain? I know how people hide pain. You were leaning and perching on everything you could, he chuckled, digging the heels of his palms into her upper back. Another groan and he sighed. There, lifting one leg up, he stopped straddling her back, laying down next to her. Arching his back, his spine clicked a few times before he laid flat, facing the ceiling. Feeling any better? Tons, she smiled, crossing her arms under the pillow. He could feel her eyes on the side of his face. How are you feeling? Restless, a shrug with his admission. I could be doing so much right now, it's just, There was only silence as he sighed. I need to be doing something because if I'm not... The thoughts come in? The thoughts are always there, Momo. Doesn't matter what's happening, but if I'm doing something, anything, I can argue those thoughts, justify my worth, and if I'm not doing something, then I'm taking away from someone else. Closing his eyes, he took a deep breath and rested his hands behind his head. Like, if the others get hurt tonight, it won't be your fault. I could have done something to help them, make sure they weren't hurt. But if you were? Then so be it. It's not like I have a ton of people to miss me. Green tea coffee would miss you, everyone here would. That's sweet, but they wouldn't. Tuya would take over and it'd be business as usual. He was shut up as Momo rolled over and sat on his stomach, staring down at him. They'd miss you? No, trying to sit up, Izuku was forced back down as her hands pressed onto his chest. Wouldn't? Yes, they would, because you are important to them, to me. As kind and caring as it is, this won't change years of psychological abuse. He grabbed her wrists and lifted her hands from his chest. I never said it would, she countered by spinning her arms and gripping his wrists, planting them above his head. But it's a start. A 17-year-old Izuku sighed as he faced his most hated enemy. It had been an hour or two since he'd last seen the outside world, even the windows closed and locked to prevent his escape. He groaned from fatigue and was ready to surrender. A headache was already forming in the back of his head as he nursed the wounds on his body from the previous night. The door began rattling as someone the other side began unlocking it. The muffled voices became clear as the door was opened. That's it. Hitoshi Shinso stood in the entrance. Izuku, how old are you? Seve like a puppet whose strings were cut, his body went limp and he stopped talking. Finish the paperwork. He watched in silent wonder as his body began moving through the piles of paper. Doing it all was muscle memory at this point. The numbers were barely different each month. The income was always greater than the expenses, so he never had to worry, but the fact he was also a landlord to 8 employees, 5 of whom were vigilantes, a 6th who knew and aided them from the apartments, and his quasi-adopted daughter, meant there was more paperwork. Throw in the growing workforce that didn't live with him, amounting to more paperwork. Honestly, at this point, he was just grateful Iguchi was helping him set up the online banking processes for the cafe. The Greenette was seriously lucky the Gecko Quirk user had been an IT technician in his former job before discrimination got him canned. Soon he'd never have to look at a pile of paperwork this high. It took maybe 5 minutes for his body to do the paperwork without him procrastinating. Shinso, someone campaigned from the other side of the figure, you know you can't. Bossman gave me explicit permission to use my quirk on him if the situation needed it. Hitoshi looked over his shoulder, even got it in writing, plus he's been in there for nearly 3 hours. It was getting dire. A ginger-haired woman scowled at him as she leant around the lavender-haired boy, who fired a piece of folded paper from a rubber band, nailing Izuku in the forehead. You alright, boss? She asked as the quirk was quickly thrown off. I'm fine, Itsuka. Don't worry. Standing up and stretching, he groaned lightly. Now, why do you need me? Komori broke another cup and Toga is refusing to let Aways fix it, she explained as he walked around his desk. Hitoshi just thicked. Every time you go into the office for more than half an hour, it descends into chaos. The trio walked into the cafe to see a girl with long brown hair in the style of a mushroom cap nervously fidgeting as Himiko cleaned up the shards of a ceramic cup. On the other side of the counter, a boy with black hair tied back with a white and blue bandana frowned with folded arms. Izuku just sighed and took the dustpan from Himiko. Yosetsu, put it together again. The teen's face lit up as he took the pieces. Himiko, go get another cup from storage. Already understanding his plan, she nodded and left the room. Shinos, Itsuka, back to work please. Komori, please get a first aid kit ready. The brunette nodded and hurried off. Once the cup was fixed, he took it from the teen. Holding it under the tap, he ran water through it. Yosetsu's face fell as streams of water ran from the bottom of the cup. A small bit of blood mixed into the liquid as the sharp edges had cut the boy's fingers. Izuku shook his head and dropped the cup in the bin. It was a nice thought, Yosetsu, honestly it was, but a broken cup will forever have cracks, even when you piece it back together. Unfortunately, we don't have the gold for kintsugi right now, so the broken cups must be binned. Yamamo. Momo can't use her quirk so brazenly, imagine it. Her making gold would destabilize the economy, it would cause chaos. It'd be amusing though. Izuku turned around to see Katsuki sat at the counter. Damn right it would be. Beside him sat Tamura Shigaraki, wearing his drawing gloves so he could hold onto his frappe cup. It'd be absolutely hilarious. I think my father would relish it though. Shoto Todoroki growled from Katsuki's other side. The ability to just use his power without repercussion, it'd be a day of fun for him. The three boys shared a look of anger. Still don't know how Wankstein Dumpsterfire can keep being the number 2 hero. Katsuki sipped his black coffee. Shoto and Tamura nearly choked on their drinks. Izuku just hummed. Criminal capture rate, it outweighs his destruction and low popularity compared to other heroes. Izuku spoke calmly and slowly as he began cleaning cups. Endeavor personifies one half of heroics, combat and victory in it. He completely ignores the other aspects of heroism, and he should never be taken as the sole example of heroism. No singular individual can be held on a pillar. All Might is though, Tamura growled. And that is a mistake, because the moment he either retires, falls or dies, Japan will collapse in on itself from the void. In effect, All Might is the worst villain we've ever had. How so? Shoto raised an eyebrow and Katsuki grumbled into his drink. Because he's created a bottleneck of sorts. While he is an inspiration to most, to villains and heroes he's a deterrent. Heroes don't have to work as hard when he's around because villains and criminals are dissuaded from acting. What he needs is to start working in a team. Before he begins retirement, he needs to slowly ease the world off his shoulders and onto the rest of the heroes. You mean pass the torch to a successor? No? Did you not listen to what I just said? No, he needs to stop being so singular. I worked here alone for a year and it wasn't fun. Once I brought in other people to ease the workload, we began thriving. If everyone depended on me to do the job, the whole place would fall apart if I took a sick day. All Might hasn't taken a sick day though, Tamura noted. But what about when he's left certain areas? The crime rate increases dramatically before topping off and reseeding to levels lower than before but higher than when All Might was present. Shoto's eyes widened slightly. All Might's creating a society of dependency, letting people put too much work on his presence alone. But if he disappears, society tumbles like a house of cards. Katsuki murmured, fuck? Yeah, fuck is right, Izuku grimaced, because it'll be years before crime goes down again. Once All Might retires, there's going to be far too much slack for heroes to pick up if we continue on our current course. What do you suggest then, Tamura growled. My plan would be tear it all down and turn it to dust. And then what? Izuku faced him patiently. The faded brunette paused. What? Yeah, and then what? What would happen after you've turned it all to dust? What would you rebuild? What would you leave behind? Would you create laws to protect people? Would the strong rule the weak or the smart rule the dumb? Would the disabled be killed or supported? What about the different quirk types? Would you divide or unite them? I don't know. And that's why you never act without thinking, Tamura. I see your weekly visits are working in tandem with your therapy sessions. Shut up, Tamura folded his arms and pouted. It took forever to get Sensei to agree to them. He thinks I don't need them. All the more reason you get them. Everyone paused to look at Katsuki, who continued, I've seen manipulators work scratch on this one. His head flicked in Izuku's direction. They'll tell you that you don't need help, because they don't want you to have it. Simply put, help stops you from doing what they want. Sensei wouldn't do that to me, he cares too much. Alright Tamura, let's go try this then. Find out what this sensei wants from you, then say you want to do something else, something that doesn't quite hit the mark, and find out his reaction. If it's anything other than support, be it anger, disappointment or over-supportiveness, you don't want it, because they either want you to obey or they want you to follow their suggestions. Tamura scratched his neck, a nervous tic they knew he had. Alright. I'll try something like that then. You have a question? Why yeah, can I just ask if I did something really bad, like horribly bad, would I be allowed back here? That depends. Izuku leant on the counter. If you did it with a reason and purpose of your own, I'd need justification. Why did you do it? If you did it with another person's reasoning or purposes in mind, I'd argue you need to cut contact with whoever it is and come here for us to help. So, if I had a psychotic breakdown, Izuku snapped his fingers. There, a psychotic breakdown, the key term is breakdown, a sign of mental instability, through manipulation, brainwashing or enforcing of unhealthy habits for your mental state. A breakdown is not the reflection of a true person, more the desire to not face the burdens or expectations placed onto you. It is a method of relieving the stress put upon you by whatever means. And if I killed someone during it? Did you mean to kill them? Tamura froze with his eyes wide, staring at the middle ground. Izuku just shrugged and went back to cleaning. Jiroda, how are Ueo and Shinso treating you? He peered into the stockroom with a grin. The newest hire, Jiroda Shisuda, was busy lifting boxes onto shelves and helping Shinso with stock while Ueo was unloading more from deliveries. Jiroda was covered from head to toe in brown hair. It covered even the non-conventional parts of his body, like the backs of his fingers, enough to hide his skin from view. It was thanks to his quirk, Beast, which allowed him to increase his size and become more animal-like. It was transformation in nature but had the mutative side effect that made his base appearance more animalistic. Sharper canines and claw-like fingernails were the main visual effects aside from the obvious fur. Despite this, he was a rather well-educated teen, excepting he'd be in stock for hygiene purposes. He got on rather well with both of his co-workers, willing to arm wrestle Ueo and hold more complex conversations with Shinso. I'm great, boss. It's been easy to learn the way around here. He spoke as he took a box down from a shelf and opened it for Shinso to count the contents. Hey, you've only had 2 shifts, just wait. Izuku smirked lightly. Shinso will make sure you don't drown, but don't expect Ueo to not fling you to the deep end. Understood, boss. Jiroda, stop. It's just Izuku, none of the formality crap, alright? Jiroda just chuckled and rubbed the back of his head. Izuku? A voice from behind him. He turned around to see Momo and Tuya stood beside each other. There's, some people want to see you. Tuya wrung his hands together. They seem formal. The greenette nodded. Right, you two with me then? They nodded and stepped apart for him to walk past. As a trio they entered his office to see Nizu. The principal of you was sat. You're in my seat. The Wyatt creature blinked before looking around and hopping from the seat. I'm terribly sorry, Mr. Midoriya. Old habits, I'm afraid. He kept a neutral face as he nodded. 2 more were with him. Eraserhead and... The bedraggled man nodded in greeting, while the other man smiled and lifted his hand. My name is Tashinori Yagi. I'm training to be a teacher at UA. Nizu thought it would be a good idea for me to shadow this meeting. Smart. Izuku closed and locked the door behind him. You know my name, but for formality's sake, my name is Izuku Midoriya. The woman to my left is Momo Yaoyorozu. She is the newest manager. The man on my right is Akitani Mikumo. He's the second in chain of command here, second hire over a year ago. Your first hire? She is overloaded as it is. When I found her, she had little over a middle school education. So she has been going through online school around work as well as therapy for her quirk, which nearly induced psychosis due to neglect from her parents. Nizu's ears twitched slightly. If this meeting ends any other way than sour, I will ask her permission to give you her name and start an investigation on her behalf. That is all I ask. Nizu nodded. You know who Toshinori is here, but Shota Aizawa, better known as Eraserhead, is the vice principal. We were hoping to talk to the owner of the cafe. That would be me, Mr. Aizawa. I started this place when I was 15, 2 years after my mother died from overwork, and I received payout and inheritance at the same time. You may remember me from the Aldera case of the same year. Nizu handled it personally after the lawsuit made headlines. I understand. So, Nizu, what brings you to our humble cafe? We haven't done anything slanderous with our social media account, nor have we done anything with libel in our store. Your cafe is quite the hit, Mr. Midoriya. Izuku will do fine. He nodded. And I came to offer you a proposition. Izuku kept his face schooled calm, though he was interested in what UA could offer him. Your cafe is popular with university students, more specifically those of UA nearby. We were wondering if you would be willing to open a secondary location inside of the UA grounds. Obviously there would be costs, however construction can be done simply by Cementos, and we have power loader to handle installation of utilities. And the costs would include? A portion of the profits made by your UA cafe, only a small amount, to act as rent for the allotment you would be based in. Waste disposal would be handled at UA's discretion for security reasons. However, your deliveries would be given access to a direct route in and out of the grounds for your cafe to keep working. Izuku considered the idea. A portion, 5%, 10%, 15, 12, and not a yen less? Not a yen more. We can hardly invite you on site and then charge you to be there. And I would have to compete with lunch rushes provided food? His cafeteria is more of a restaurant on campus. It does not serve to continue asking him to provide full meals when the students only need a pick-me-up. An alternative because you are concerned one of your staff is overworked? All right, let me know when the building is constructed and we can figure out who will move over to the location. Nodding to Tuya, the older teen flicked a switch and shutters fell over the door-aned windows. Now, onto something I've wanted to talk about for a long time. He reached under his desk and noted Aizawa's tensing as he reached for his capture weapon. Akatani Mikumo, as you probably guessed, is a fake name, taken in order to protect himself and us. The large file was dropped onto his desk. Tuya Todoroki is opening a case against Enji Todoroki. As his friend, I've done nothing but supported him in his preparation. As his employer, I have told him to keep all the information organized in a binder. I've heard rumors of a detective with a lie detector quirk. If you do not trust our words, he can accompany you when you return and you may ask us whatever you need to confirm the facts. Endeavor would never do such a thing. He is the number 2 hero. What goes on behind closed doors remains behind closed doors. Toshinori. Tuya folded his arms. You don't have to believe us yet, but once your detective gets involved you'll have no choice but to. Nizu took the file and began reading, his patience waxing with every passing sentence. Taking a deep breath, he closed the folder. You understand the weight behind these accusations, correct? Of course I do, Nizu. Izuku waved a hand, and I wouldn't believe it either, unless the burnt form of Tuya Todoroki crashed onto my balcony late at night. I remember doing what I could to save his skin that night. Some of the heavier stuff has scarred his chest and back. And Miss Yaoyorozu knows this? The entire workforce knows it, along with a close personal friend of mine that overheard the conversation at one point during a busy work day. Shoto, Fuyumi, Rei, and Natsuo Todoroki also know of Tuya's employment and subsequent protection here. Shoto and his other siblings come over at least once each month. Tuya also has a select weekend off to visit his mother in the hospital, where Endeavor threw and trapped her. You seem awfully sure of the truth, Mr. Midoriya. I have 2 of 5 Todorokis that tell me a corroborating story. Unless this is the most complex and thought-out smear campaign in history, the facts I put before you are the true facts of the matter. If what you are telling me turns out to be false, UA will have no connections to you ever again. I am aware of the risks, Nizu. Izuku spoke flatly. I will do whatever I can to do what I believe is right, and if that means exposing the number 2 hero and painting a target the size of the Sky Needle on my back, so be it. I do not care what people say about me or do to me for that matter. Momo tensed behind them. But I will not allow injustice to fester simply because others are too blind to see it. He glanced at Toshinori, or too naive. The blonde man sputtered at the accusation. while Aizawa merely grunted in agreement. Tuya and Momo sucked on their teeth, causing the man to pause. Mr. Yagi, I may only be 17, but I run a successful cafe that your boss has just asked to open on the grounds where you work. I am no child, but you were about to contest my statement, correct? A flushing nod. Very well, you are free to believe what you wish, however our views conflict rather heavily. Are you aware of the Aldera case several years ago? If not, I suggest you read it. If they can be that bad, what's stopping the number 2 hero from being worse, or the number 1? Toshinori suddenly frowned. You are aware you are accusing the top 2 heroes of being villains? No, criminals? Yes, Endeavor, as you can see in the file, if you happen to read it, All Might, because he is, for lack of a better word, coddling the masses. His decision to be a singular pillar has lifted the weight of the current generation of heroes, a weight that will crush the next generation and the generations after that, as criminals realize nobody can be as strong as All Might was, but they don't have to beat All Might anymore. Being able to fight All Might in his prime would give any villain the ability to walk over all heroes on active duty. What? Izuku sighed and nodded to Momo, who made 6 plastic cups. He stacked them in the regular pyramid pattern. Take this pyramid as society. The gaunt man nodded. Now, All Might has done this. Carefully moving the cups, he made an inverted pyramid. He's here, right? Holding society up, the single pillar of justice, the symbol of peace. Now when he retires or otherwise falls in battle, with a swift movement he knocked the single cup from the bottom of the pyramid. The other cups came crashing onto his desk, spilling onto the floor. Society as it stands will fall, and unless he can find out a way to change what he's done, a uncaring shrug, it will be All Might's fault, because he's allowed everyone to be dependent on him in his reign. So, what happens when he leaves? Nizu finished with a small nod. You think far ahead, Izuku. Well, it's only natural. I do have to go to uni next year, meaning I had to find someone capable of replacing me until I came back, or permanently if we open more stores. He nodded to Tuya. And why are you going to uni when you already run a successful cafe? So you can come Eraserhead, or more specifically, he grinned, the same reason I opened the cafe in the first place, to give everyone a safe space, including heroes, where they can sit with a nice drink and enjoy some peace from the hustle and bustle of the world outside. A noble goal. Yes, well, Izuku waved a hand. It's the only logical course of action. I can't actively be a hero thanks to my quirklessness, so this is the I fight quirkless? Don't insult yourself, Eraserhead. You level the playing field. You do not fight quirkless, you fight quirkless? And mutant types? Your quirk weakens mutant types, not entirely erasing them but weakening them. Even then, you have been able to work on styles to counter them. I cannot. Why not? I fought my way onto the hero course during second-year sports festival. Yes, but I'd have to win, podium, or at the very least beat a few of the hero course students, without being given a victory by a friend, such as Momo or Shinso for example. That is simply impossible for a man such as I. Nothing is impossible, Mr. Midoriya, Toshinori smiled. After all, I never thought I could be a teacher, yet I'm already in the midst of earning my license. Aizawa looked stone-cold shocked as Nizu folded his arms. Not far along as we'd like, but progress is progress. Izuku smiled and shook his head. Even if that were the case, it is too much of a dangerous profession for me to try and enter. Momo coughed something suspiciously like bullshit, meeting his raised eyebrow with a smirk. Anyway, thank you for visiting. I trust you'll be in touch when it is ready for us to begin transferring? Of course. Nizu shook his hand as they stood up. Thank you for your time, Izuku. The conversation has been enlightening to say the least. The trio began to leave. Tuya stepped next to Izuku. You don't trust them, do you? Not a single fucking bit. He spoke through a fake smile to Nizu as they exited the building. Tsubura, Kaneki. Izuku rubbed his eyes gently. Please either order something or actually study. I don't give you the booth for you to goof off and gawk at the passers-by. Both teens startled and turned to look at him. Katz is determined to get you two through high school. You know the moment he gets here, you are studying until he leaves. They both stared in shock before throwing their bags open and pulling out books. With a nod, Izuku left them and moved back behind the counter. As he cleaned up, he looked around at the store. Himiko and Tuya were walking around, carrying trays of drinks to large parties between handing off drinks to trios when at the counter. Iguchi was wandering about, grabbing the cups for cleaning and binning any left wrappers or packets. Momo was busy wiping down tables, a smile etched on her face. In the back, he knew that Jiroda and Shinso would be working away at stocks. Shoji was meant to start his evening shift soon too. Iwao could call it a day when the multi-armed teen punched in. He was their first non-live-in hire. A teenage with 6 arms and the ability to grow more. He had an impressive stature as well as good strength. He could also change his appendages into other parts, such as ears, eyes, or mouths. The greenette, though upset he couldn't bring him to the apartments, was at least happy that he had a supportive network of friends and family. Thanks to that, he'd met people like Koji Koda and Fumikage Tokoyami, who knew Shoji as a neighbor instead of a classmate. They quickly became regulars at the cafe once they heard of Shoji's employment, even expressing interest to join but hesitance to do so, since they would feel any larger a workforce was unneeded. Izuku gave them credit for thinking so laterally, but remained steadfast in the decision that as soon as a job became available, both boys would be offered it. A voice brought him from his musings. Momo? What are you working here? Oh my god. He looked over to see a teen with blonde hair smiling superiorly at her. The Yaoyorozu heiress, working in some? Excuse me sir, Izuku frowned and walked over. If you're going to harass my coworkers and insult the cafe, I'm going to ask you to leave. The blonde had the gall to look offended. Do you know who I am? With a smirk, Izuku raised an eyebrow. Should I? Nito Monoma, the heir to the Monoma Corporation? Wonderful, well prodigal sir, you need to leave. Izuku gestured as Monoma recoiled. Excuse you. Do not tell me what to do. Sir, leave or I will call the authorities about a harassment and refusal to cooperate. How dare you? I demand to speak with your manager. Izuku paused, before his face split into a cold smile that made Monoma's smirk falter. Sir, I'm the owner of this establishment. Please leave or you will be escorted from the premises and the authorities will be called. You dare threaten me? Sir, you have one more chance to resolve this peacefully. His face fell flat. Now stop embarrassing yourself and your parents, leave the premises and do not return. Monoma took a step back. Because you and your company are barred from this establishment. Monoma looked at him, before turning to Momo and back again, a hand rested on his shoulder. There a problem here, boss? None at all, Shoji. Go get clocked in. The 6-armed mountain of a teen walked past them towards the back. Monoma gaped at his form, before looking between Izuku and Momo before turning around and marching out of the cafe. Izuku dusted his hands off to sheer silence. Now that's dealt with, you take a break Momo and settle your nerves. We can talk in my office. Akatani, man the counter for 5 minutes. On it, he made a cup of tea before gently guiding her into the loan room. So he's an asshole? He summarized after Momo's explanation of Monoma's character. She nodded glumly. He's a rather conceited person, entitled wouldn't go amiss. His parents' company is smaller than Yaoyorozu Industries and they've made several attempts at making Monoma a suitable candidate as a suitor. Luckily Mothmom and Dad have always prioritized my happiness over the idea of increasing the company. They made sure I was capable to inherit it, but they have never made an attempt to force me into something I was seriously against doing. He raised an eyebrow. They encouraged me to face several fears, including flying and needles, as well as do things like going on roller coasters and bungee jumping. I understand. There was a knock at the door. Come in. Itsuka poked her head around the door. Itsuka? You don't have a shift today? No, but I heard that some asshole came in and left Momo shaken. The ginger eyed the Ravenette worried. The two had a sort of sistership going. It was odd how different they were. Itsuka, the daughter of a martial arts teacher, who owned his own dojo, and Momo, daughter of one of the most influential businessmen in the business. Itsuka had grown up learning the value of money, the function over feature kind of person, and while Momo was inherently a function over feature person, her upbringing had given her a more relaxed approach. A middle ground of the quality and appearance. Despite their natures, they got on as well as sisters. Momo often purposefully scheduling all of Itsuka's shifts to coincide with hers, an abuse of power sure, but Izuku let it slide since it didn't affect either's work. The two embraced briefly before turning back to Izuku, who raised a hand preemptively. Already banned from the cafe as is anyone in his immediate family or social circle, Itsuka seemed satisfied with this as she nodded. Now, is he going to be a bother at school? What? Will he bother you at school? Izuku repeated slowly. Aizu, you don't have? No, I don't have to. I don't have to do anything. He kicked his feet up on the desk. I don't have to run this cafe the way I do, but I am, because I want to, and if he's going to harass you at school, I will happily notify police that somebody is harassing my employee, or depending on how often he finds you, stalking said employee. But he didn't know I live here. I've lived here for what, a year now? Yes, but when did he first move to your school? What? Are you saying that you think Monoma only began following her because he moved to her school? In a sense, yes, I've seen Momo's school. Security is very tight over there. Anyone would find it hard to follow anybody out of those exits. In fact, he probably lost you to the sea of fleeing students every day. However, if he moved in, say a couple months ago, he had to figure out your timetable, then adjust for which exit you take on any given day, then follow you close enough to not lose you, but far enough away to not be caught. Add that to the fact you often spend an hour or two studying in one of the booths and Monoma most likely has a curfew. Both girls paled as Izuku nodded his head. I'll get the police on the phone now. Itsuka, please take Momo up to my apartment, first door. I have a feeling she's not going to want to be alone tonight. He threw a key to her. Help yourself to snacks and drinks. Put on a movie if you want. Wi-Fi password is on the fridge. Are you sure? He smiled at her. You're letting me into your place, unsupervised. But it's not unsupervised, is it? Momo's there, plus the fact of the matter is, I know you're not going to do anything bad. I trust you. Just one favor. Yeah. Shoot. Keep her happy. Yawning widely, Izuku opened his eyes. His vision cleared as he stared at the ceiling. He tried sitting up but found his arms were weighed down against the bed. Looking on either side, he found Momo and Itsuka on his left and right arms respectively. Recalling the events of yesterday, Izuku did his best to remain calm. Momo had been startled by a customer, something monomer or whatever. His face and name were on the counter with a do not serve notice. He had phoned the police on her behalf with concern the boy was stalking her, something that was said at quite possibly the worst time. The police had been very forthcoming about helping once he told them it was Momo and that they'd get their best detective to deal with the suspicions. Some underground heroes would also be notified in case something in the night occurred. After he'd got off the phone and finsied up his paperwork, he'd spent half an hour with Iguchi fixing the online banking for the cafe. Now they just needed a security group to deposit the money at the bank for the cafe. Deciding to deal with that tomorrow, he had moved up to his and Shinso's apartment, only to find Itsuka and Momo camping. On the sofa, in a den of blankets, gorging on the snacks he'd purposefully hidden away. The lavender-haired teen was nowhere to be found, indicating it was him that had sold out Izuku's stash. Trash duty for a month then. The two had roped him into the pit and they'd spent the evening watching crappy films. He would have put something good on, had he not lost every vote 2-1. Once the two had grown tired, he'd offered them the bed for the night. Of course, neither was going to allow him to sleep on the sofa or on the floor. Neither had a change of clothes either. Welp, at the time he'd not put much thought into it. Now he was struggling as both girls looked exceedingly good in his oversized pajamas. Laying on either side of him, cuddling the arm they were resting their heads on. His hands weren't anywhere inappropriate as far as he could tell, but he obviously wasn't about to either check or look, just to be safe. With a small sigh and a groan, Momo was second to wake, rubbing the sleep out of her eyes. The moment she realized where she was, the comforter was pulled over her head and she tried hiding from sight, only to reappear seconds later as she realized she was still clinging to his arm. Izuku smiled as he tried not to laugh. Itsuka made a noise and rolled over his arm, placing her back against his side, sandwiching herself between him and his arm. Bending his elbow, his was able to put his hand over her side and onto her back. He was not about to be accused of debauchery, not at this time of the morning. He needed coffee before the headaches could begin. "No, I don't want to work out today," she mumbled in her sleep. "I gotta work." Izuku and Momo shared a look. "See Momo and Aizu, hold on. Fuin, Izuki rebooting." Her hold on his arm grew tighter. Momo began holding back giggles, putting one hand over her mouth as her body shook with spasms of restrained laughter. Silence reigned as Itsuka slowly looked over her shoulder at the pair in what can only be described as sheer horror. Good morning. Despite his calm facade, Izuku was internally panicking, more so than regular internal panic. Izuku was freaking out and about one more incident from a total collapse of higher brain functions. The trio laid there for several seconds, getting steadily redder until he coughed. So, breakfast? Yeah, breakfast. Forward-ish sounds great. Both girls were suddenly detached and leaving the room, only for them to collide, heading for the door and knock the other back. He watched in a mixture of amusement and embarrassment as they stared to each other, grabbing the other's borrowed shirt, before staring down at their own. Their eyes only grew wider before Itsuka was first to leave the room, Momo quickly following. Both girls paused, however, for a brief moment to look back and smile, something of a reassurance to him as they fled. After an awkward conversation and agreement nothing indecent happened in the night, the trio had shared breakfast and taken turns getting dressed in his room. Momo and Itsuka were meant to work today anyway, which meant they could all just calm down and get back to normal. That's new. Izuku looked over to see Chisaki sat at the counter, looking at the picture from security footage that they'd used for Monoma's picture. What the hell happened? Izuku prepped a latte as he spoke. Not much. Came in, began harassing Yamamoto, nearly started insulting the cafe, had to threaten to call authorities to get him out, only left when Shoji rocked up for his shift. We think he's been stalking her for a while now. Took a few hours for her to calm down after it. Chisaki shook his head. So, how's your daily good deed going? Oh, great. Last week I got a cat out of a tree for this kid. Got a thank you letter today from them. The daily good deed task was a deal between Chisaki and Izuku, after the former admitted to his germophobia and accidentally outed his ideology that quirks were a disease. The greenette had admitted his quirklessness. It brought a new dynamic to the pair. Chisaki asked why Izuku wanted to help heroes, even though he'd never be considered one himself. Their conversation had explored the views on heroism and helping for the sake of being kind. Both knew that Chisaki's mindset was ingrained into him though, as any person's is. After several conversations about the idea of helping, Izuku had challenged the man to do one random act of kindness, for no other reason than doing it. Over the last year, Izuku had subtly combated Chisaki's thought process, much like he had Tamura's. Yesterday I did the most stereotypical thing, helped this old lady with her shopping. Poor woman had to walk 6 blocks to the shops and she would only go on a monthly basis. The amount of shopping she had was ludicrous. And your medical license? Izuku, we talked about this. I can't be a doctor if I'm the head of a Yakuza faction. The greenette just shrugged. Don't tell anybody, but my dad used to be there. Hisashi Midoriya? Chisaki froze. I knew I heard the name Midoriya somewhere before. Yeah, apparently he met my mom and jumped Yakuza ship to be with her. Since he was such a high ranker and feared by a lot of they just let him go. What's to say you can't do the same? I mean, no one questions what I do. Where is the old man then? Oh, fucked if I know, damned if I care. He jumped the family ship when I was diagnosed quirkless. For real? Ooh, yeah, I've told you how Ma worked overtime to support us both, right? Why yeah, you said it caused her a heart attack in her sleep? Yeah, I was 13 at the time. Dad had been gone for 9 years. Think he showed up for the funeral? Did he fuck? Izuku just shook his head. Look, Chisaki, I'm going to be honest with you. Your quirk, it's fucking terrifying. You could do so much damage with it. Honestly, you could kill me in a second if you even grabbed my clothing. Nothing I could do for it. Honestly, a lot of the quirks people have here could kill me. Shinso could have me off myself. Momo could create literally anything to kill me and erase the evidence. Kahuzo's just gotta jump with me and let me drop. Let's not go into what Shoji and Jiroda could do to me. Itsuka could just crush my entire body in her hand. They could kill me, but they don't want to. Exactly. Now, I know how you used to believe heroism was a disease, but that would make villainy a disease too, wouldn't it? People work with the hands they've been dealt. You, my friend, you have a quirk that could give people a second lease on life. I could. I mean, who else could reconstruct a spinal column that's been completely severed? You could literally put a person back together after they've been bisected. He smiled. Obviously you'd have timing to worry about. Blood loss and brain activity can't be reconstructed after all, but you'd be nothing short of a miracle worker for their gunshot wound, gone like that, cancer tumor, disappeared, danger of a blocked artery. Not anymore, because you could do that. You think I could do that? Chisaki, look at me, I'm a dude without a quirk, without parents, who's built up his own successful cafe when he was only 15. I like to think that it's a sign. If I can do this, the latte slid over to Chisaki with a straw for his mask. You can do whatever you put your mind to. A quiet pause. But I know how you're germophobic, so I'd suggest that first, you go to therapy and get that sorted out. You really believe in me? Izuku sighed. You're a good man, Chisaki. You want to help the world. I know that, I can see that, I want to help you achieve that because if you're going to help the world, it's worth doing it right. The man closed his eyes and soothed his head good-naturedly. Thank you, Izuku. He took his paper cup and turned around. I'll be by again sometime tomorrow. I'll be waiting, Chisaki. The greenette called after him, raising a hand in farewell. You guys work fast. He looked around the new location. It was a 4-story building, the cafe taking up the first 2 floors. For security purposes, Nizu had requested the staff for the cafe move onto UA grounds as well. Meaning the top 2 floors were apartments, double the amount Izuku's building had. Of course, Cementos finished building yesterday morning and Power Loader spent the day fixing the utilities up. The principal nodded by his shin. We wanted to make sure everything was more than up to code for our first high street store, even more so because it's a cafe our students and teachers will be using often. The greenette looked down at him quickly. In civilian attire and attitude, they are teachers when on ground, not heroes. You won't need a certification to serve them. Good, thank you for making sure of that. They moved to the stairs for the 2nd floor. Have you looked at the list I emailed you of employees I would transfer here? Yes, yourself, Miss Yayarozu, Miss Kendo, Miss Komori, Mr. Shishida, Mr. Waze, Mr. Hitoshi and Mr. Shoji, correct? Correct. 8 employees might seem much but... Labor laws, I am aware, Izuku, Nizu nodded. I take it you already have living arrangements organized then? Yes, 6 2-bedroom apartments divide into 12 rooms. Shinso, Momo and I will be ready to move in and start up shop, but the other 5 may take time to move in. There's also 2 more prospective applications I have in mind to round out the workforce. As it stands, the others should be alright to handle the other store on their own. I notice your workforce here are all on the cusp of applying to university. Is there any reason for it? Yes, they all plan on applying here for various courses. Many are taking an exam with a fallback exam in case. And you believe they will all be accepted? I'll be honest, Nizu, they are a skilled group of people. The only reason they are working for me is because they wanted some real-world experience before moving to university. There is no doubt in my mind they shall pass whatever exam you throw at them. A small smile. And what of Himiko, Toga? She is of the age range as well, is she not? She's unsure if she want to apply to university at all, considering her parents didn't allow her a high school education and she's been doing online learning for the last 2 years. If she decides to apply, I will let you know. She will be joining our workforce here. Thank you. Now, is everything up to expectations? Of course. I take it downstairs will double as an after-hours for a bar for teachers? Naturally, it's more security to have teachers on site at all times, even when they have nights out. I understand wholeheartedly. However, considering my age, will you be supplying the alcohol? You will not have to deal with a single drop of it, no, only serving it to the consumers, as your employees do in your bar. Returning downstairs, they walked out of the cafe to find Aizawa and Tuya waiting. The 2 were having a silent stare-off as the pair joined them. Aizawa, what is going on? The grungy man sighed, before pulling a file from his jacket and handing it to Nizu. They were right, he admitted through gritted teeth. Tsukachi's just finished interviewing Fuyumi and Natsuo Todoroki. Endeavor refuses to allow him to speak to Shoto and biometrics confirm this is Tuya Todoroki, said man pulled down the bottom of one eye and stuck his tongue out in a childish manner of victory. Izuku remained stone-faced as Nizu shook his head. I've already asked Tsukachi to open an investigation and we have an independent psychiatrist in to evaluate Rei in the hospital. If the results come back any different, we'll have accomplices too. Once Endeavor leaves for his patrols, we're having police move in to take them into protective custody. Take them to the cafe. Eraserhead, take them to the cafe. With all due respect, Midoriya, You aren't? I don't care if I'm in charge. Izuku stepped up to the man. I'm the one who told you. I'm the one who's protected Tuya when you failed to. I'm the guy Endeavor will never hear about. With every other word he poked Aizawa's shoulder. So send them to the cafe. The two entered a stair down. They're going to need somewhere they can trust. The cafe is that place, and considering we're about to have 3 rooms available, it's your best bet. Izuku. Tuya grabbed his arm. The greenette just turned around and chucked a set of keys at him. Hitoshi and I will move in today. Fuyumi can take his room. Shoto and Natsuo get mine. When Rei gets released, she can bunk with Fuyumi until more rooms open up. You know you don't have to do this, right? When has that ever worked on me, Tuya? I do it because I want to. You'll be putting a target on your back, Aizawa warned. Bigger than being quirkless already has? Or bigger than being a successful businessman despite being a teen has? Or the obnoxious amalgamation of both? Both men stopped for a minute and just looked at Izuku as he walked away with Tuya. You think I don't think it through, or I'm not ready for consequences? You're wrong. I'm just strong enough to face whatever comes my way. The police moved quickly. Izuku had to give them credit for that. Once they'd arrived back at the cafe, Izuku had taken Hitoshi up to the apartment to pack. Almost immediately Momo had done the same while Himiko joined in after Tuya informed the others downstairs. Both boys had quickly gotten to work, organizing what little effects they had. Mainly clothes and some memorabilia. Photos of the group, an old-school shirt covered in signatures of classmates and some hero merch in Izuku's case. There was no way he was packing and moving a bed into Yua. Nizu had informed him the apartments were furnished, so there was no reason to take furniture. They packed a few days of food in freezer bags and hid a spare key on the street entrance. Leaving some plain linen for the beds, they packed up the more colorful and themed designs. Hitoshi had begun stacking the boxes out of sheer habit as Izuku labeled each of them. A curt series of raps on the door and Izuku undid the locks to see Aizawa accompanied by several officers and the Todoroki siblings. Aizawa? Midoriya? The man nodded. The 3 seem eager to move into this place. As I explained, they are aware Tuya lives here and have visited on several occasions. They know they're safe here. Izuku, Fuyumi greeted nervously. Are you as sure about this? I am. Fuyumi, don't worry, he gently placated. Come in, we'll get some tea and coffee brewed. Still drinking cold brews, Shoto? Yes, the bicolored teen nodded. Izuku rolled his eyes playfully. All right, come on in. Aizawa stepped in first. I'm going to. Aizawa. Izuku closed his eyes and huffed through his nose. Do you really think I would sell them out when it's me who brought the issue to your attention? The scraggly man frowned. It would be highly illogical to go to such lengths only to betray them. Why do what I've done to their father if I was just going to hand them over to a villain? There's been 1,001 instances they could have been kidnapped when they visited. Sighed he moved out of the way. Fine, since you can't seem to trust me, go ahead and check the apartment. The siblings also moved into the room and made themselves comfortable. Officers, can I offer you a beverage as well? Sorry sir, we're on the clock. That's fine. Swing by the cafe downstairs on your breaks then. Service workers get a discount. Just bring valid ID. They all nodded, eager smiles on their faces. Aizawa returned moments later with an irate scowl. Apartment is clear. The police began leaving. Midoriya a word. Bye. The hero prevented him from closing the door. Izuku hung his head and gestured. Both stepped out of the door and it closed behind him. What? What's your game plan here? Game plan? Aizawa, do you not trust me? Shaking his head, he lifted a hand. No, clearly you don't, otherwise you wouldn't be so anal about all of this. Let me ask instead, why don't you trust me? Reports show you've served Kai Chisaki, supposed leader of the. And if I have? His eyes narrowed. So what? He came in, ordered a drink, and I served him. If we had a conversation about the weather and how work is only fun when you make it fun, so be it. Aizawa opened his mouth. I'm not doing this for approval, from the public, from heroes, or from you. You don't like who I serve? All right, don't come here, problem fucking solved. But do not come to my home when I'm doing a job you should have done years ago, and tell me who I can and cannot serve in my cafe. Shut up, just shut up, Eraserhead. I'm not asking you to trust me. Lord knows that'd be hypocritical because I don't trust you, or Nizu, Or even the blonde oaf you came with last time, want to give students a pick-me-up? Please, he scoffed. You're concerned that I'm either going to be a high-priority target or I'm secretly a broker for villains. Either way you can shove it up your ass and take it to the bank. I'm doing what I've always wanted to do, help people no matter their circumstances. A person can always use some help, and guess what? Thanks to me, Chisaki is actually trying for a medical license so he can be a doctor, because we've decided that his quirk can do so much more if he uses it for good. I've even offered a spot for him to lay low when he does ditch them, because there's only been one man who managed to get out of that lifestyle. It's not out of the question you are using high dash. Aizawa clutched his jaw as he stumbled from Izuku's punch. Never accuse me of something with that fucker. I will never be like that absentee, bastardly, coward of a man. What happens in my store is none of your concern, and reasons relating to Chisaki being a customer don't matter either. Now, the older man glared at him. Get off my property. God, you guys, you didn't have to. He gently put down his boxes as the others all stood waiting in the new cafe. He looked to the lavender teen beside him. This is why you wanted to take the long route, isn't it? It was Himi's idea, Hitoshi admitted with a smirk. The blonde in question grinned and waved. This place is awesome, plus we get to tour UA's grounds. Jiroda beamed. Plus we get our own apartments rent-free. Mom and Dad were psyched I got this from a job opportunity. Mine were also very happy with the development. Shoji nodded. Ma was a bit worried about me leaving the house, but my old man was more than happy for me. Yatsetsu held up a thumb. Pops was worried about the house feeling empty, but he and Mom have got so much more shroom to themselves. Komori joked idly. Yeah, well, Dad's upset I can't help at the dojo anymore, but Mom is excited to see me grow. Itsuka shrugged. We've spent the day unpacking. Once Tuya sent word around the cafe, the few of us off shift were packed and moving in while you got the Todoroki settled in. Plus, the more staff here for launch the better, right? Momo grinned. There is one other person here though. Papa. Eri charged from behind the group and jumped into his chest. Izuku grunted as she knocked the wind from him, but caught her in a hug anyway. This place is so big. I'll bet everything's been furnished, so you guys are all done, right? Yup, we looked over the plan you had and might have made a few changes. Momo blushed. Izuku hummed quietly. The boys have been split up into a pair and a 3, instead of 5 to an apartment. The 4 girls have also been split, 2 to an apartment. So out of the 6 we have, 2 are currently unoccupied? A brief nod. All right, we can work with this. Shinso, let's go get unpacked. They hauled their boxes up the stairs. The others set about organizing the cafe, Jiroda disappearing into the back to deal with stock. Momo had apparently organized the delivery without him, which honestly impressed him. So, who are you bunking with? What do you mean? Hitoshi went pink. Momo told you? Yes, she also agreed 2 apartments are unoccupied, but never specified it was only 2. Himiko bunks with you. Momo and Itsuka take another apartment. Komori bunks with Jiroda. Do you really think I'm that blind to the relationships of my employees? He scoffed playfully. Give me some credit, man. Yeah, all right. He chuckled. You and I bunk while Momo, Himi and Itsuka get the other room. Komori and Jiroda wanted to share a room and Himi didn't mind sacrificing it so long as we shared an apartment. Thank you, but this doesn't get you off trash duty for selling out my stash. Damn it, they shared a laugh before arriving into the new apartment. Izuku took a deep breath and grinned. He was getting closer to his dream. Kneeling down, he laid the flowers on the floor. I'm really doing it, Mom. I am. UA's even asked for an exclusive cafe on their grounds. Can you believe it? Cleaning the grave slowly, he kept monologuing. Endeavors skipped town too. Once the media got hold of the investigation, they've been at it like rabid animals. The HSPC is under major fire and there's rumors it'll be shut down if it's discovered they knew or try and cover up anything during the investigation. It's incredible what I was able to do with just a little cafe. A small sad smile. Chisaki says hello. He remembers you and Hisashi. Misses you a lot. Hates his guts. Much like I do, he's trying to get out of it now, just. Yesterday he came clean about what he did to Pops and brought the old man back for a drink and talk. He's got a lot to do to regain trust, but with Pops reinstated as head, Chisaki's been able to slink out of the light and begin his departure. The guy wants to help the world, I know he does, but his methods, Squiffy, a hand rocked side to side, 3 out of 10, originality? 5. The air gently brushed his hair. The cafe is super popular with the UA students. We've only been there a day, not even time to really put everything in place, but it's already a hit. Once the machines and coolers get installed, we'll be the first real cafe in UA. Honestly, I wish you could be here to see it, Mom. I really do. Rocking on his heels to sit down, he rested his elbows on his knees, fidgeting with his fingers. I miss you, Mom, so much. I know it's been a couple weeks since I last came to see you, but I've just been so caught up in life right now. Things are getting busier. Hisashi still hasn't reached out. That can stay that way now. Honestly, good riddance to him. But I'm happier than I was, Mom. I am now. The cafe staff, they're family to me. A small chuckle. You'd love them, Mom. You would. They'd adore you too. Honestly, half of them would call you Mom. The other half would be Ma'am. I tell ya, I'm glad I had you for the time I did. He put a hand on the tombstone. Because you taught me how to be what others needed. You taught me how to be you for the people I care about. So thank you for that, Mom. Standing up, he dusted his trousers. I've got to go now. The others are going to need me for a few days while Tuya adjusts to being in charge. But I'll be back soon, I promise. Bye, Mom. I love you. With a smile on his face, Izuku left the cemetery feeling a little lighter. Thought I'd find you here? Cats, what's going on, man? The blonde man was stood by the entrance to the graveyard. Nothing, which is the problem. Scratch and Wings haven't shown up for a few days. Did you try talk to their families? Wings has up and vanished. Kairu. The place was empty and Scratch never gave an address, did he? Tsubura may have had to move suddenly. His dad is imprisoned for villainy. They might have had to go into witness protection. A note would have been nice though. I know. Look, there's a few officers that stop at the cafe for their break. I'll see if they've heard anything about Tsubura, alright? Tamura, it could be that his sensei isn't happy with him. If he doesn't show up in a few days, I'll register a missing persons report. Sound good? Yeah, that works. Look, I'm about to head there now. Come with and we'll see if we can get some answers now. The two slowly began to make their way through the streets. The scene they arrived to was tense to say the least. The unmistakable figure of Miruko was stood leaning over Kazuho and Tuya. Why can't you serve me? As I just said, ma'am. I don't care about needing ID. Why can't you? They can't serve you, Miruko. Izuku cut in, stepping between the parties. Because we aren't officially licensed to serve heroes, his hands raised. We would serve you. We would, but currently, we'd get in serious legal trouble if we served you while you are A, in costume and on patrol, and B, recognizably the rabbit hero Miruko. If you can come back when neither condition is filled, we'd happily serve you. And who are you, runt? Another Emple dash. I'm the owner and the who started this cafe. Watch yourself, Miruko, or you'll find this place won't serve you anything, not even a black coffee. The heroine glared at his impassive face. Intimidation works both ways, Miruko. You're currently on 4 different security cameras and a handful of cell phones, threatening my employees. That can't be good for image, can it? A pro-heroine forcing employees to break a law so she can have a drink? I'd never imagine a newly minted solo heroine could be so brash. He raised an eyebrow. Now, either be on your way and come back when you're off shift and out of costume, or don't and see what happens. A smirk. It's all about bluffing, Miruko. Did you wake up and feel lucky this morning? Did ya? Punk, you're at least aware of your situation, are you not? On film, harassing my workers, insulting me, trying to abuse your power and coerce us into breaking code of conduct that could get us arrested? Her shock was poorly hidden, and then it would fall onto you, Miruko, to repair the situation, including covering legal fees, lost wages, lost stock, the loss of income your tantrum will cost us. There's a lot of fees you'll need to cover in addition to this single, what? Espresso you're demanding from us? He moved around the counter and began working the machines. But I mean, alright, you are the hero after all. You don't have the balls. Sure about that? As he turned around, he held a steaming drink in a to-go cup. Adding a lid to it, he smiled coldly. So should I ring you up now, or is there something else you wanted with it? They entered a silent staring contest. She blinked first. Fine. She twirled on her foot and marched out of the door. Silence reigned for several seconds. Does anyone want this Americano, or? Taking it with him to his office, he felt Tuya droop behind him. Yes? I was gonna ask for her number. So this is green tea coffee? Izuku looked over to see some students looking around. This is where you study, Tamaki? A loud blonde boy cheered. Beside him was a periwinkle-haired woman and a rather withdrawn dark-haired boy. Come on, let's order something. Green tea coffee sounds like a weird name. Is the guy a green person? Does it sell cold drinks? The periwinkle girl looked around. Let's just order, guys. The blue-haired boy, Tamaki he assumed, mumbled quietly. The trio made their way to the counter. Can we get one mocha, a frappe, and a decaf with milk? Sure, pick a table and we'll get it straight to you. Izuku nodded, accepting the payment. The trio disappeared from his view as Momo came from the stairs. Hey, we got another order. I'll run it soon as you got it ready. She nodded with a smile, beginning to wash the cups and bin anything non-reusable. After that I suggest you take your break. Not until everyone else has had theirs. I'm pretty sure Shoji, Juroda and Shinso called it a day after checking all the stock and deliveries. They're just waiting out the clock now. If that's the case, get Shinso out from and the other two on restocking. He grunted as he finished the first drink. Plus Itsuka and I are going to take ours with you. Yosetsu, Komori and Himiko should be able to handle it. Lunch rush is over now anyway. Momo dried her hands before picking up a clean tray and loading the first two drinks onto it. Fine, when you get back I'll go on break. Tell Yosetsu he's manning counter. Komori and Himiko should be running orders right now. If you see there, let them know too. You got it, boss. She smiled, taking the tray away. Looking for a blonde, a periwinkle and a blue-haired trio. With a nod Momo disappeared from view and Izuku took over the cleaning she had started. Sighing he watched the door. They'd opened in UA a few days ago and Izuku found himself missing the high street. Sure, they got great views. The apartments were definitely more spacious. The cafe was a large place after all, not some regular street building copy-pasted onto UA grounds. They even had a patio for outdoor seating and a balcony to match upstairs. It was pretty cool when he thought about it. Plus he paid hardly anything to live in it and it was on UA's grounds, because they wanted his cafe here. Sure, he'd go back to the high street cafe just to make sure everything was alright, maybe give Tuya a hand if he needed it, but the man had it all under control. Most of the time. Plus Fuyumi and Natsuo had to leave their previous jobs to really hide from Endeavor, so they got the Todoroki treatment, dyed hair and fake names before getting to work in the cafe. Shoto was busy undergoing serious therapy for the trauma he suffered. Izuku occasionally saw him with Hound Dog, walking around the campus or sitting in the cafe for a drink. The last he'd heard of the case, Rei had been released from the hospital and several of the doctors and nurses had been arrested for malpractice on her case. Currently she was occupying Momo and Himiko's old room above the cafe, easing her way back into society by getting to know the staff she called neighbors. Alright, let's go. Momo reappeared, sliding the tray into a sink and making herself a drink. The duo walked into his office where Itsuka was sat waiting. Out of my seat. He flicked a hand, the ginger woman smirked and stood up, sitting on his desk beside him as he sat down. Momo sat on his other side on top of the desk too. I take it there is a reason for this? Yes, there is. Itsuka nodded before sipping her drink. How are you? Fine. Izuku, she knows. Momo rolled her eyes. She's known for a while, since finding mine laptop. Oh. I know what happened when Momo found out too. Since we've moved into this store you've been tired, you're sporting a light limp on your left leg. What gives? That? I just landed wrong. Nothing major, just a grade 1 tear. It'll be fine in a few days. Momo just massaged her forehead with one hand. You tore a muscle and didn't notify anyone? Hey, I thought I just pulled it. He defended. Woke up the next morning and it was still sore, so I leveled it up a bit. Since it's just a low pain, it's a grade 1. It's not Eve, of course it's not checked by a doctor. You were shot and just bandaged yourself up, Itsuka grumbled, folding her arms. Alright, I'm going to ignore that you didn't let anybody know, even Himiko or Tuya, and you're going to rest for the next few days until it's healed, meaning you're walking with a crutch or a cane for the meantime, office work only, and no late nights, alright? Neither of you are going to let me go until I agree, are you? Both shook their heads, smiling triumphantly. Alright, you two aren't on front duty until I'm done then. They froze, staring at him. You can't overpower your boss, ladies. Now you've got a choice here. Trash duty, paperwork or stocks? Pick your poison. Grinning nefariously he got up. Now, I've got to head to the other store to check up on a few things. Momo, can I please have a cane? The onyx-haired woman obliged, grumbling under her breath. Chin up, sweetie, you nearly had me there. Taking the walking stick, he picked up his cup in the other hand. I'll be back before it's dark. They walked to the door as a group, Momo pulling it open. Don't you worry about me. Someone has to, she smiled, kissing his cheek. Why not us? Itsuka kissed the other side of his face. It wasn't until he'd left the cafe and was halfway to the exit of UA before any of them realized what happened. 3 separate cries of shock disturbing the relative peace. Yo, boss man. Koichi waved as he continued to clean dishes. 2 years in the office, we got some new peeps looking for work. Natsuo was stood next to him, currently working machines, and Fuyumi and Kahuzo walked about the place, loading trays up into stacks with rubbish and cleanable cups on the top. Mikumo was all for hiring them, but Fubuki and Natsuharu recognized them both, wanted to wait for you. On cue, the Todorokis both turned to him. Plus they're the Yakuza, Natsuo hissed, we can't? It's alright, Natsuharu, if it's who I think it is, we'll be fine. He grinned, moving towards the office. Fuyumi stopped him. Izuku, they're part of a? So was my dad. Fubuki, if he can jump ship not once, but twice, these guys can do it too. Her surprise let him walk to the office and open the door. Chisaki, Pops, welcome. The two turned in their chairs and nodded in greeting, and Tuya stood up out of his chair. The others wanted you to wait for my go-ahead? Why yeah, these two aren't incredibly prolific, but, well, it doesn't help that someone they knew got involved in a few cases here and there. Endeavor handled the Yakuza before? That was news. The former number 2 would never have dealt with something so clandestine. Well, it didn't matter anymore. I've retired from the Yakuza now. They let me go peacefully since I was in critical condition so long. Pops smiled. They let me out so I can care for him at all times. Since I'm the only living family member, even through adoption, they wanted the best for the former shy Hisaki leader. Gone was Chisaki's plague doctor mask, instead replaced with a plain black surgical mask. I've managed to finally enroll in an online course for my medical license too, though my therapist is still helping me through my mysophobia for when I need to do practical lessons and exams. And you still want to work here while doing all that? I mean, why not? It'll kill some free time I have outside studying, Chisaki shrugged, and by the time the Yakuza find out, it'll be too late. Well, thanks to the shy Hisaki leader and second-in-command disappearing, the death of the clan is only so far away now. Pops nodded solemnly. I believe it'll only be a few years now before they completely dissolve. Izuku nodded and smiled. Well then, welcome to the group. Do you have a place to stay? If not, we'll have to rework a few rooms. Oh, don't worry, we have an apartment, just a few blocks away, something the Yakuza don't know about. Chisaki waved a gloved hand. Pops is more than happy to just man the counter, and I'm good for anything really. Wonderful, give us a few days and Tuya will notify of your shifts. The pair nodded to him and stood up, shaking hands with him and Tuya before leaving. As they did, a boy with ridiculous eyelashes walked in looking around confused. Hi, excuse me? Is it Suka Kendo here? No, she's at the other cafe at you. What can I do for you? Oh, my name's Tetsu. Kendo told me about a job opportunity. Something about transferring money? Izuku beamed. Yes, wonderful, my name's Izuku Midoriya. I'm the owner and founder of Green Tea Coffee. We've been waiting on you, Mr. Testetsu. Leading him back towards the office, he grinned. You see, we've been relatively good going for a little over 2 years now, but we've been paying a third-party transfer company to do our cash deposits. I've been trying to find someone who can do that for us, as an employee. Itsuka told me about someone she knew with a quirk that turns their body metal. Why yeah, it's called steel, works off of how iron-heavy my diet is. Wonderful, this is perfect. Looking over to Tuya, the greenette lifted a thumb. Now, the job we're giving you is actually quite dangerous. You're basically given a box of notes, the physical income for the month. We need you to take it to the bank and deposit the cash into the cafe's account. Hopefully you won't look too suspicious, but we'll also equip you with a body cam as standard. Of course, this is if you decide to take the job. If Kendo believes in me, I got it? Wonderful, well, you're lucky we've been waiting for a man like you, Tetsu. Here's the route you'll be taking. I highly suggest memorizing it. You'll also be going to the UA branch. I have a pass organized for you. We just need a photograph for it. Email that to me as soon as you can. I'll get back to you when we're ready for you to start your fist shift, all right? You got it. He nodded with a wide grin, taking the folded map out of Izuku's hand and opening it up before marching his way out of the cafe. Izuku merely sighed and took his cane. Did you need me for anything else? No, we got everything handled. It's been running smoothly, so nothing to worry about. A dry cough. How's the leg? Grade 1 tear. Nothing serious. I'll be back to it in a week or so. Itsuka knows apparently. You didn't know? She's been on our cases about looking out for you for ages. Really? He huffed indignantly. I suppose that I shouldn't be insulted by the fact Noon told me? We all figured you knew? Tuya just shrugged. Oh, before you go, Mom wanted to meet you. Do you think you could? I'll go up now, but I told the girls I'd be back at UA for dark. Izuku lifted a hand. Haven't redesigned the back room, have you? Nope. Tuya chuckled as the greenette trundled into the staff door. I must say you are younger than I thought you'd be, Mr. Midoriya. Izuku will do just fine, Mrs. Todoroki, or would you prefer Miss Himura again? The mother froze at his words as she poured tea. They currently sat in her current apartment. Just as quickly she got over her shock and shook her head. You really did do your research? I did nothing. Tuya did all the legwork. Well, Shoto and Natsuo, they weren't sure what Endeavor would have done to her if he'd found out. Shoto would have been trained harder and Natsuo could have easily just done another Tuya event. Izuku shrugged. All I did was make sure everything was ordered into a timeline and handed over to the right people. And you gave Tuya a home after he threw him out? Ray, he didn't just throw Tuya out. The world thinks he's dead right now. He spoke gently. What did they tell you occurred? That Tuya and Enji had a disagreement, which resulted in Tuya being thrown out of the house. Miss Himura, part of the house was burnt down. Tuya crashed on my balcony with his skin almost peeling off his body. It took days for him to recover from the burns in his muscles. Tuya nearly died because he fought back. She sat quietly contemplating his sentence. You seem calmer than I had expected. Honestly, it does not surprise me that things got that bad. My psychotic episode causing Shoto's scar was probably just the first crack before the glass castle broke. A wistful sigh. My parents are also being arrested for taking part in a quirk marriage, Natsuo told me. He shut the door on them when they tried visiting, hasn't unlocked it since. Shoto's had to come and go through the cafe. Well, once you have found your feet again, Miss Himura, you are more than welcome to come and dance with the family of green tea coffee, if you ever wish to dance again. I did wonder where Tuya picked his charm up from. She chuckled. You are a well-mannered young man. Your parents must be proud. Yeah, I hope Mom is. Putting his cup down, he closed his eyes with a small smile. She died when I was 13, forced to work illegal hours after her employer illegally forced her to by cutting her pay when word got out I was quirkless. I think my dad did it honestly. He disappeared a few days after I was, diagnosed, so his approval is the last thing that matters to me. I don't care about him, where he is or how he's faring. Forgive my attitude, but if I find he's been dead under a bridge for the last decade, I shan't cry. I'm sorry if... It's no harm, Miss Himura. Honestly, Tuya would tell you if you asked. He doesn't out of respect for my privacy. But to go back a moment, I doubt you would want a middle-aged woman like me in this place. Miss Himura, if I may stop you just there, age, quirk, race, sex, sexuality and what have yous will never affect the offer of working in green tea coffee. Here we are a family, close-knit and reliant on each other. Once you are invited, it will always be open. Everyone here is here because I chose them for their character, because they want to make the world a better place, or they just want to help a single person every day. That's all. That is everything there is to working for my cafe. Small smile. I'd hardly call you middle-aged anyway. Your eldest are only what, 23? Making me 43, you charmer. She shook her head. He wasn't lying when he said learning your charm was easy, such silver-tongued skill. Miss Himura, I'm no silver-tongued snake. I simply mean as I say and say as I feel, and that aside, one of my newest hires is a grandfather content with working the counter alone. Wherever you wish to be, the cafe will work with it. If I may boast, my herbal brews were always popular before, well. It is no bother if you wish to not talk about it, Miss Himura, and I'm pretty sure that Fuyumi was talking to Tuya about getting a herbal tea mixer for the cafe. Perhaps a herbal corner would be better? Some partitioning and a small door, matting actually. He began rubbing his chin and she laughed again. My, thoughtful too, if Tuya's learned half your charm ladies will be falling over themselves for him, you don't need to go to any lengths for me, do not stretch to accommodate me, and please stop with the miss, Ray will do just fine. I'm not stretching mean Ray, honestly this cafe will always be the first, so it will grow with the company and the family. In fact I'm already talking to Tuya about buying the building next door to expand the cafe floor space anyway. Creating a relaxation room with a herbal tea counter would hardly be a Herculean task, just talk to him about it when you're feeling up to it and we'll sort it all out. With a sip of his drink Izuku smiled across the table, all you have to do is ask. This is the place Mina? Are you sure? Yeah obviously Kiri, what other cafe is called green tea coffee? I don't know, it seems pretty new, Izuku chuckled as he left the office. That's because it is sir, founded this place with my own 2 hands 2 years ago now. Walking over to them, he offered the hand not holding his cane towards them. Izuku Midoriya? Eijiro Kirishima. A spiky redhead shook his head vigorously. You founded this place? Super manly dude, you don't look much older than us. That's because I'm not Mr. Kirishima, I'm only 17, the cane is to help with a leg injury I sustained a few days ago. Dude, that's awesome, I'm Mina Ashido. Heard this place was so good you asked them to have a branch on campus? We do, I spoke with Nizu about it, it's a rather nice location, UA's not so bad either, he joked lightly, it's always full of hero hopefuls, including the staff, many of them will be attempting the entrance exam, in fact I believe all of them are, without me of course. Why not? I have a business to run Miss Ashido, I'll be taking the business course in order to open up my humble services to licensed heroes. Really? That's manly, we're both aiming for the hero course too. Wonderful, I suppose I'll see you on campus at some point then? I dare say you've both got the perfect attitudes for it. They both smiled widely, they followed Izuku to the counter as he slid behind it. So what can I get some young heroes in training? A nice cappuccino for me and something calming for Mina please. Coming right up Mr. Kirishima. He nodded with a smile, ignoring the pout on Mina's face. Might I ask your quirks? Studying them has always been a pastime of mine. Oh really? Mine's hardening, I can harden my skin and make myself harder to break. My goal is to reach a state where I'm unbreakable so I can save anyone that needs help. Acid, I can secrete any acid from any point on my body. It can be anywhere from mildly irritating to burning through concrete. I want to learn to control it so well I can save everyone that's stuck anywhere. There's more to it than that, you know. What about the people that are hurt outside of fights? Suppose a small girl came to you because she was being abused? Or a man called for help while he was being kidnapped? They both paused and stared at him. There is more to heroes than their quirks, but it seems the media forget this a lot. What's your quirk, Mr. Midoriya? Just Izuku is enough, Mr. Kirishima, and I'm quirkless, have been since the day I was born. A small smile and a nod. Don't worry, it's not a big deal to me, not anymore, but please, don't gawk like I'm some zoo animal or exhibit at a gallery. Both of them shook their heads before smiling sheepishly. You won't often meet a quirkless because they're dead more often than not. Normally it's suicide before they get to my age or it's old age because they were born in a more accepting generation, he mused. But anyway, that's enough bleak thinking for now, don't you think? He paused. I don't suppose you'd be looking for a job, would you, Mr. Kirishima? Well, simply, this cafe has a large amount of cash payments and we're currently on the lookout for people that would be suited to make the deposits at the bank for us, save on hiring a third party to do it. The redhead nodded. And I believe your hardening would work perfectly for it. But I need to use it publicly, since you'd be working for us, it'd be a private use and we could always get the certificate for you as evidence. We did for our other security man. His quirk turns his body into a steel-like substance. With 2 indestructible men running the gauntlet, we wouldn't have to fear anything. Sure, yeah I can. Kirishima grinned. I mean the founder himself thinks I can do it. Why the hell shouldn't I try? Awesome, just head over to the office and talk to a guy named Akitani about it. Say I asked you directly and he should handle it from there. Hey, if Kiri's getting a job, I want one too. Are you quite sure about that, Miss Ashido? Anything I give you would be much less interesting. I don't mind, I want a job too, and asking you directly saves the job hunting. Quite right, he chuckled. Very well then, give me a few days to make a few calls. Would you be comfortable moving to work? Your housing would be provided by the cafe. Seriously? I get to move out and get a job. I'm all for it. Where would I be going? Oh, just some apartments above the other cafe, on UA grounds. You want me at the UA cafe? It surely wouldn't hurt, would it? Plus the apartments they've given us so far beat student accommodations by a long shot. A shrug. If you come back in a few days, I'll be in the office with Tuya and possibly Nizu, so we can arrange for you to be given access to the grounds when you move in. Thank you. They both cried. Don't think twice about it. I'd be mad to not have two such upbeat individuals join my team, plus showing off two more prospective students to Nizu would definitely make the cafe look better, so it's wins all around. Now I believe you guys have a lot to prepare for, especially you Miss Ishido. Mr. Kirishima, if you would prefer accommodation as well, I can see what we can arrange. Kirishima saluted. Thank you, Mr. Midoriya. We'll be off now. They took the to-go ups and dutifully began walking out of the cafe. Cheers of celebration heard as they wandered down the street. Izuku smiled and leant on the counter before grabbing his cane and walking out of the cafe. Taking a deep breath, he smiled to the sunset. Things were going, wait, sunset? Crap, he'd promised to be back before dark again. Shit. Power walking through the streets, he made his way to UA. The fear of God in his heart. Really, kid? You're going to pull this card? I'm a teacher, for God's sake. Izuku grinned as he leant on the counter. Yes, but you're also a hero, a profession I'm not licensed to serve. Aizawa fumed silently. Hey, we never agreed this place could serve heroes. It's got a course of heroes. In training, they're still classified as students so long as they're here. Izuku interrupted as a purplet walked up to the counter. Can I get a hot chocolate, please? Large with some marshmallows? Don't bother, Nem, Aizawa huffed angrily. Coming right up, ma'am. Izuku bit a chuckle back as his face went stone. Anything else for you? No thanks, Mr. Midoriya. Please, Miss Kiyama. It's just Izuku. None of that, Mister. It's far too formal for me. He served the drink and dropped a handful of small marshmallows on the top. You were saying, Aizawa? What the hell? He growled, holding Kiyama hostage. You don't serve heroes? Izuku nodded slowly. Do you? Eraserhead, I want you to seriously look at Miss Kiyama and please tell me what you see. My coworker, dressed in a baggy jumper and jeans, with her head tied in a bun and red-rimmed glasses. Alright, now, can you please describe Midnight's hero uniform? A quick head shake. Never mind, I'll cut to the chase. Currently I'm not serving pro-hero in Midnight, I'm serving UA teacher Namuri Kiyama, who's also Midnight, who's currently not A on patrol or B recognizable as her hero persona. But he simply held up a hand and bowed his head, sighing before he spoke. Eraserhead, what do you teach in? A black jumpsuit? Alright, and your hero costume? A black jumpsuit? Do you see the problem yet, Eraserhead? His hands cupped air and moved close together before moving away as if the invisible objects were repelling each other. Do ya? Aizawa stared silently, his eyes narrowing. It's part of why I can't serve Nizu until I get the license. He's just too recognizable. The same with Cementos, Ectoplasm, 13 and Hound Dog, because they are too identifiable, part of the law. If, say, All Might walked into my cafe, as awesome as that'd be, I'd have to refuse him service because people would recognize him far too much. Lunch Rush doesn't really stop by to buy anything, so I can give him a drink during a meeting for recipes and collaborations. Even Hisashi changes when he does a lunch run for us. Kiyama nodded. It's not much, letting his hair down, changing his jacket, taking his shades off. He simply gets out of costume. Izuku nodded, like many heroes do on breaks and such, which is when they normally visit my cafes. Grabbing a cloth, he began cleaning the counter. I don't know what you want from me, Eraserhead. You're the one wearing a crusty 3-day worn bodysuit in my establishment expecting service? Are you saying if I changed out of my clothes, you'd serve me? With that, he released his coworker and she walked towards a table, sitting down quietly to read a novel. So long as people can't recognize Eraserhead, I will happily serve Shota Aizawa. Does that make sense? Change of clothes, maybe pull back the hair. Don't have the yellow goggles on. I don't know why you lot teach in hero uniforms anyway. Because we need to be ready for an. Then just wear it under your clothes. Jesus, did none of you read a comic book growing up? A guy literally just tore his clothes off whenever his hero identity was needed. Another had nanomachines that created his costume. Some even had casual wear as their costumes for Pete's sake. Sup, partner? Izuku grinned. Mr. Konishi? I've told ya for just Makoto is fine. I'll get the usual please. One Americano extra sugar and cinnamon coming up, he chuckled, pushing the machines around. You've gone for the same color scheme I see? Unrecognizable, but in homage like always, Izuku turned around and put the drink down on the counter. Thank you kindly. The till beeped as payment was taken before the hero walked back to the door, sitting in the seating area to soak up the sun. Hey, can I get a McFuckin'? One mocha frappe with a triple shot espresso on the way, Mr. Maijima. He shared a chuckle with the teacher. And a white coffee with some cinnamon for your friend outside? Obviously he was talking about some Mentos. Was currently stood outside the cafe waiting for the other teacher to get the drinks. And some cookies on the house as standard thanks for, well, building the house. You don't. I'm not serving some Mentos, Eraserhead. Izuku shook his head with a wide smile. Mr. Maijima's put the order in and paid for it. How else would you be getting the drinks when the other staff does a coffee run? Wonderful as always, Izuku. Maijima tapped his card to the reader and smiled when the satisfying beep sounded, signaling him to pick up the 2 steaming cups and Plattix-wrapped snacks and walk outside. Now, Eraserhead, there's an emergency changing room in the back if you have some spare clothes, but if not, well, shrugging with an apologetic smile, he shook his hands. I'm afraid I can't serve you. The shit-eating grin on his face contradicted his sorry words. Both knew he was enjoying taking the subtle revenge on the teacher. Said man grumbled rather aggressively before closing his eyes and taking a deep breath. Very well, I'll be back. Sure you will, Terminator, sure you will. Izuku nodded tiredly. Now are you going to actually leave or are you going to glower at me for a few minutes? Because if you are, can you please move out of the way of the line? I have actual customers to serve.